Well, welcome everybody to Flat Earth Nation. Now called Mud Flood Was Armageddon. Don't let them tell you anything else. It is a Flat Earth Nation. Mud Flood was Armageddon. And you're going to have a hard time finding people ready to debate you. I'm still waiting on Jerry. He will be here. We practiced this and okay, I'm going to send him another link right now. Huh. Well, the only thing he's seeing in the email was an address. I might have forgotten to put the link. Let me take care of that real quick. Oh, I see what the problem was. Jerry, it's my bad. I copied your email address in because it just showed up to me as Jerry Diamond. And when I sent it, it was your actual address, which is not Jerry Diamond, but some of the, the other never mind. Let me focus on what I'm doing here. It's only going to be 10 more seconds. There it is. So now, Jerry, you have a link. And also, I can, I put a link in the comments too. And that's always the one where you can go to the video and scroll up and scroll down. I have, so he'll be in here. He'll be in here shortly. I know he wants to talk about some things. I want to talk about some things. I know you want to hear some things. What do we got going? What's the big things right now? Well, we got the storm closing in on New Orleans. We have just September, October, November, December, 4 months left before what I said the one time. And I said, I don't know, because I did consider myself a prophet. I've said, I feel like the last prophet a couple of times because, well, I was the first one to talk about Armageddon being over. The stones cried out. I traced it. I found the gold in the stones and the Nephilim. I tied it into we are precious stones to God. We are living stones. And it says he created us to do good works in his name because he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. And it says he's a living stone. We're living stones. And when we do good works in his name, after we're saved by grace, that he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. And it's gold, silver, and precious stone. So we got what I've been preaching. You shouldn't have loyalty to the United States. You shouldn't be proud that you're from the United States. That gives you a reason to boast. So we're seeing Afghanistan fall apart. I think we're about to see New Orleans take one of its final big hits and other stuff. And along with that, I have an expert in survivalism locations. And I'm going to welcome to the show now, Jerry Diamond. And can you hear me, Jerry? Let me get a sound check from you, brother.
Yeah, I can hear you. I gotta get.
Yeah, we can hear you too.
Yeah, I can hear you. I gotta get a lighting.
Okay, I'm going to spend just a couple of seconds. Well, I want to go through. I'll use this time to set up, some of the things that people are going to have to be aware of. These here, you can see, these are the 600 additives to cigarettes. And if you can pause this later, I hope. This is the list that R.J. Phillips provided when they did their big settlement. You know, oh, you've been fined, you've been found guilty. But like Google and everybody else, they're not going to be charged with their murders. They just paid their crime. And was it tobacco? No, because tobacco has all of those cancer-causing ingredients. Tobacco doesn't cause cancer. Formaldehyde is a good one. Naphthalene is another really bad one they put in there to get you to cause cancer, because they take everything that was good and make it bad. Toluene, well, that's just one of the solvents. You see, paint thinner, that's a solvent. It is a vicious solvent. And lead. Well, people don't like lead. We found, you know, at least not ingesting it as far as I know. And it's just one of those things that, you know, we have a world full of a lot of Christian Americans who'd never look any farther than, I don't smoke and I don't chew and I don't date people who do. And I just, one of the ingredients they left off of that list is phosphine. That is nerve gas. So that's where I'm at. I think that right now that we're at the, you know, welcome again, Jerry. I'm just giving a diatribe about how close I think we are, not to the end, but to a separation from the people who are going to be, and it's a fair comparison, I think, to make to the book, The Brave New World, and how they all lived in the cities and they all thought, don't go in the country, there's savages out there. And I think it's time for that sort of a separation. So I've got that covered, and now you're the guy that's going to be, you've got a pretty good sales pitch for the people in the Midwest of the Arkansas and the Ozark Mountains, and I know a lot of people want to hear that, but I want to hear, did you get your air conditioner fixed, brother?
Yeah, it's running. I can hear okay, so I think we're good.
Good. Okay.
I'm not going to be dying of heat.
And so maybe before you get into it, I'm going to ask you, do you see down below the screen, you see how we're in the studio and, you know, they only see that big screen and everything else they can't see. Do you see a thing that says share with a plus sign?
No.
Okay,
there's a blue thing that I see. I'm half the screen, and then there's the other half. There's down below, there's a blue thing. It says you're in the show. Everyone can see and hear you. And I see me, you know, that's it. I don't even see you. But I see you in a little teeny screen. You're a little thumbnail.
Well, because there are times that other people had a hard time finding it. Look down on the bottom right of your screen. Is it checked full screen or not? When you have to move your mouse over it and check it. Move that, because you need to get something that if you want to share screen and show something, it's really easy once you find that share button, and it's always there somewhere. Everybody always finds it sometime.
I don't. Oh, there's your screen. Why aren't you up there? I got you on a floating screen. Why is that?
I'm what?
A floating. Now
I'm doing this broadcast from a Google Loon balloon.
Yeah. Well, that's what it is. Okay, cool.
That's what it's pretending to be.
I don't see anything. So I had your channel up, mud flood, but now I don't see. You're just blank. You're a black hole.
Well, I might be freezing up. Sometimes I freeze up, but usually they tell me in the screen.
Right now, it's just black. Just black. I can see me at two different places, but I don't see you at all. Nothing. And there is no share.
It'll pop back in a second.
Okay, and there is no share thing at all. I'd love to have that. I'd like to cover some things that I really want to get across. I thought about sending them to you and having you, you know, put them up on your screen. I might try that, but
Well, you might try. Do you see in the comments? I might be able to take those in private chat, but I can't in the regular comments. Whenever I click on a comment in the regular comment section, I can't highlight it or anything else. It'll just say something like, Nicole will be saying, "I'll be back, everyone. I've got to get my patient bed. God bless," and then I can click off it. So
Yeah,
I
I saw
won't
that.
be able to highlight if you send it in the regular comments. It'll have to be in private chat, and then I'll be able to share it. And that private chat should be on your right-hand side too. Everybody finds it eventually too.
Yeah, I got that.
So
That's
if you
what
have
someone if someone wants to message me, they can private chat with me. I got it. Okay.
and
I
if
don't
you
see
want
any
to
share
send
though.
me a
No
link,
share
if you
screen.
want to send me a link to share, put it in the private chat. That's the only way I'll get it, and let me know. So anyway, go back to the Arkansas, the survivalism. Why should people? How long have you been doing it? And the benefits of oh, and now he disappears. Well, everybody, this is going to be that's just the way it's going to be. He's going to come back on. Hopefully you'll realize and try that link again, because I want to I at least, and if Jerry doesn't come on, somebody else pop in that link, because I want to do a show tonight, man, and I want to talk to people about, man, what type of proof do you need? What else is it going to take to make you think, I'm glad the Lord has shown me flat earth. I'm glad the Lord is drawing, I'm being drawn to the Lord by the Father, because no one comes to Jesus unless the Father draws him. So that's where we're at right now. We've got a debacle in Afghanistan after 20 years. We have 16 years to the day New Orleans about to get hammered again with a hurricane that right now looks like it's going to be 30% stronger. And then you have medical concerns in the United States that some people aren't complying with, and they're being called the bad guys. So, pick a topic, anybody. That-a-way, Jerry.
Okay.
So that-a-way, just keep that link handy. If you've got a Wi-Fi that drops off, just click it again. That's never me shutting you off. If I shut you off, you'll know it. I'll tell you first.
Okay.
But I don't see that happening. But just don't ever think, wow, why'd he cut me off? It wasn't me.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Again, your side of the screen is black loading, so maybe that's on my end, signal or something.
All right. No, it's probably me. A lot of times other people, sometimes I like to have a co-host on, because if my internet goes bad, they just keep on going. And a lot of that was working well until recently. I went to pick a guy up in New Mexico, took him to Arizona, met with the people he wanted to meet, brought him back here, then took him and delivered him to New Orleans. And when Tommy, who had a sore back, wanted to go, we just, we left, and it wasn't enough, because he had other people he wanted to introduce us to that day and possibly give, help them with donations. But we were tapped out and tired, man. And that was the same person that when I had him on the show was telling me, I made this prophecy about New Orleans in 2020, or at least this prediction that St. Louis is going to be incommunicatable with New Orleans via the Mississippi River by the end of 2021. And it was 2021. And then, so this person that we helped all the time and everything else is now all of a sudden was out going like, they didn't help me enough, and they didn't do this and that. So am I frustrated? You have no idea, brother, how frustrated I am. And I only want to keep doing the message on the wall, saying till the very end, if you're going to need to flee because you are, and if you're serious about it, you got a place to go. I know other places that I think will be safe. I don't think there's only one safe place, but if you've got a safer place, I want to hear about it, Jerry.
And I think a lot of them are going to be temporary. Like I can tell you a story about Four Corners, a really neat story, but I think they're going to be temporary. And there's a lot of reasons I say that, but yeah, I guess I could start there.
Now, too, I am breaking up a lot.
Say what?
What?
Are you talking? You're off.
Nothing, man. I was talking to I was cut off for a second. It was the first time that I actually saw my own screen turn black.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you're up okay now. All right, so anyway, there's a lot of interesting areas of the country that'll be, I think, temporary safe. The White Mountains, up in the Northeast, Smoky Mountains, maybe Blue Ridge, Cumberland Gap. But I believe they're going to be temporary. And I say that for a lot of reasons, just because it makes sense when you look at the big picture and the dangers that are there. We talked earlier today, and I talked a little bit about the volcanic activity around the western slope and the fact that, you just got a lot of problems out there. You got the southern border and the northern border, and it's going to pour right through Canada, right through the northern states and all the way across the Texas, Arizona, and New Mexico border. They're all going to be inundated with invasion, both coasts, everything. So I see a big picture thing. That's one thing that's just weird about the way my mind works. And I got a really good call today from a guy, and he just wanted to pick my brain on a couple of topics. But one of the things he admonished toward the end was he said, you guys tonight should just focus on staying on topic and staying on point and, hammering points home. And you should be able to put together a video that'll, knock it out of the park. You should go viral, if you stay on point instead of getting distracted and talking about 100 different topics. So that's one thing I'm not good about, because he says, what you've got to do with you is your mind is working so that you read everything, you look at everything, you listen to everything. That's why you have the vast, he said something like an encyclopedic vast repertoire of knowledge in your head. That's why you have that. But he says when you're doing videos, you need to stay on point and cover one topic. So I'd like to do that tonight, make kind of a practice for doing another one. So let's touch base on different safe areas. Okay, yeah, there's going to be some safe areas, but they're not going to be very long because they're going to be surrounded. What I would recommend everybody to read is a book called The Civil War II by Tom Chittum. And he posits the idea that at some point in time, this country is going to split in two. We have a civil war, and you'll have areas that are temporarily safe, and then you call that an enclave. There could be a gathering of white people in mid Tennessee, but they'll be surrounded and they'll be wiped out. You'll have an enclave down in Fremont County, Colorado, but it'll be an enclave. It'll be surrounded and wiped out. So you have all these temporary places. A really awesome one is the Four Corners area. And we had friends one time that lived in Colorado. They were Mormon, and they went down there, and the people that owned the property they were looking at weren't there. And then that weekend they got a phone call, and they said, "Well, why were you looking at that property?" And Susie, she kind of hemmed and hawed a little bit, and they said, "Well, we want to know why you wanted to look at that property." And she finally said, "Well, because we want to have a place to go where we can raise food for people." And they said, oh, "Okay, well, we just want to know if you were from the good people or bad people." They said, "Yeah, we have prophecies in our on a Hopi nation down there that in the latter days, this is going to be a place that will provide food for many hundreds and thousands of people. But then that will go north to be with our brethren in the north, something like that." So anyway, so it'll be a good place temporary, though. And the same thing with Hell's Canyon in Idaho. It's a really awesome, very deep canyon. They say there's still orchards growing there from the Depression. People went there to survive during the Depression, and the fruit trees are still growing. So there's places in Idaho that are good, but they're not going to be there very long. They're not going to be good very long. And I say that because of we touched just briefly last night on the idea of the Craton. The Craton is a very, very large, very massive rock. It is less dense than the Earth's mantle. It can't sink. And it goes from the mid-Rockies, the Continental Divide. If you look at it, just pull up a map of the Continental Divide if you could. Anybody could do that. It runs right down the middle of the Rockies. That's the continental divide. All the water to the east goes east, and all the water to the west goes west. Water to the west goes in the Pacific, and the water in the east goes to the Gulf of Mexico. So it's a dividing line. Same thing in the Appalachians. There is a fault line in the middle of the Appalachians, but it's the Appalachians and the Rockies basically were pushed up, formed the continental tectonic plate shift, slammed into the Craton. Craton doesn't move. It's thick, it's heavy, it's hard. It cannot move. It will not move. So that's how the Rockies and the Appalachians were formed. Now, it also goes from mid-Texas to Greenland. It's a huge, huge area. And okay, you pulled up there. Okay, see, so that's the red line there in the west. That's a continental divide, and that is the edge of the Craton. And then the orange line on the right kind of somewhat follows the Craton. On the east, that's the Appalachian Mountains. Then it goes through Middle Texas. It goes right in between Dallas, Fort Worth, and Highway 69 up through Texas and then Oklahoma. So it's a huge area. You don't have Greenland up there, but up beyond the Labrador Sea, Greenland's out there somewhere. It's part of Greenland is part of the Craton. So Greenland is basically a safe area, and that's why they're having all the safe places up there. The Ark, you see movies about the Ark and building underground things for people to go into. All the rich people, the brainy scientists, and the doctors, and everything. That's where they're going to take them all. Greenland to go underground. There's a movie that just came out a while back called Greenland. Greenland is the name of it. Yeah, it's called Greenland. That's the name of the movie. And it has, fiery stones coming out of heaven and blah, 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 out of the skies. So you can pull up a Craton, map of the Craton. But anyway, so that's, I think that a lot of those places are going to be temporary. And I mentioned I read a book called I See That There Is No Death by Sarah Linnell Manette. It's a near-death experience. And the chapter 4, I See the Future. She sees the future of the United States and the world. And everything in that I saw being very much accurate as far as what I perceive and what I see happening. And I didn't see anything in that chapter that disagreed with what I see happening. So it's going to happen, whatever. So very amazing, very, very awesome chapter, because it talks about a whole bunch of things that I think are going to happen. So she saw these cities of light, what she came to call cities of light. They were points of light. And then she focused in on them. They were groups of people who were praying, and they knew something bad was going to happen. They prepared as best they could. They had leadership, they had food, and they were willing to share that food. And they were the only places where when the zombie apocalypse, people flooded out of the cities to kill everything in their path. They went around all these points of light. They did not attack and kill the people in the points of light. She said they had protection, and the Lord was with them, is what she said, quote unquote.
Now, refresh everybody's memory in case they missed it. Who wrote this book and when?
Lady's name is Sarah Linnell Manette, M-I-N-E-T, French word, Manette. She was a Mormon. I don't know if she became a Mormon, whatever, but anyway, it was a near-death experience where she died and went to heaven and was shown all this stuff. So I don't believe in those as wholeheartedly, but when everything says the same thing and they agree with everything else I'm seeing, then I got to put some credence in it. George Washington's vision is very much interesting, that everybody should read that. But so yeah, in her book she says that the thing that really impressed me was the fact that she saw only 20 or 30 places of light, cities of light, as she called them, areas where people were preparing and helping people. Only saw 20 or 30 of them. Most of them were in the west. Only 3 or 4, quote unquote, I just listened to it the other night. Only 3 or 4 were in the east. Okay, but then she said that I was given to know that they were going to go to some other place, singular, another place, is what she said, another place, and that it would be in the mountains. Well, if the people in the east go west and the people in the west go east, they're going to meet at the Ozark Plateau, the U.S. interior highlands, and so it's just another little telling thing that I just see happening.
Well, I also don't put a lot of credence in those type of situations, of near-death experiences and things like that. But we also, if things are happening, they're happening. Because Here's where I'm at. I know what the Lord has shown me, and it's all coming true. And I feel like that right now that I have been a pretty faithful watchman on the wall. I feel like, I can't say for sure I've closed my screen. So I just saw my screen go back. So I'm going to be freezing up a little bit, but when I freeze up and it's more than a few seconds, you just pick it up and keep going. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, that's kind of a nutshell thing about the West and whatnot. The other thing is I talked earlier when you and I were talking is that Dutch since has followed fracking and drilling and earthquakes and tornadoes and hurricanes and whatnot and been very, very dead on predicting stuff. But dead on, that's not no pun intended, although the double entendre there. But anyway, he's been very accurate. One time, my son David and I were there. He was here when they came by, fixed the air conditioner today. But we were sitting there listening to him, and he was very excited. He said that's when he was doing harp circles and scalar squares. He was predicting tornadoes because they would do beams of energy, and they would have a tornado there within 2 days. So he said, "I've never seen these moving before." He said, "These two are moving," and he named the two cities that they went through. And right in between, he said, so in 2 or 3 days, there's going to be a tornado in between these. That's when Joplin got hit.
Okay.
He named the two cities on either side of Joplin, and the tornado went right through Joplin. It looked like a artillery barrage had hit it for about an hour. And I was very, very irritated by that because it was deliberate. They either had, what do you call them, next rad radar in a C-130s or semis, one of the two. They were moving. He didn't say how fast he thought they were moving, but they were moving pretty fast. So it might have been C-130s or something, but they beamed and they pushed the tornado. They created a pathway for the tornado to go through. And they excited the air and whatnot. And I told you earlier, tornadoes are sheath vortex plasma discharge. They are electrical phenomenon. They're not wind generated. They're electricity. And there's a lot of, like I said, if you look at the electric universe model, scientists, these are real scientists that can actually predict things, and they're totally against it. They put out about 600 of them got together and put out a letter to the world science, the world's body of scientists saying, get off your BS wagon and tell these people the truth. The sun is not a thermonuclear generator, electrical, the moon is electrical, tides are electrical, and they can actually predict things. So comets are not dirty snowballs, blah blah blah. They're electrical. So anyway, this is a huge thing because when I saw the sheath vortex plasma discharge thing in the tornadoes, and the fact that almost every tornado in the world is in America, that tells me that there's a lot of energy here, a lot of electrical energy. And so for 2 or 3 years, I was saying that, well, there's some reason why the middle of the United States is very electrically powerful. It's very well grounded because we have tornadoes, and tornadoes occur when you have a discharge from the ionosphere to ground. And the next closest nation that has tornadoes is Canada. They have only 100, but America has 1,000. And if you look at the map, you can see that. And then the map, to pull up a world tornado map, anybody can do that. I'm not telling you to do it, but if you can find it, it's Encyclopedia Britannica world map of tornadoes, and you'll see that there are a few of them in South America, South Africa, Australia, and smatterings elsewhere. So they're basically where, they're farming, a lot of farming is done, a lot of really productive farming is done. So one time I made a crack to a lady that was into managed intensive grazing, was an expert in it. She had studied under the Rhodesian guy. My son read his book, Holistic Management. He'd been a freedom fighter down there. Anyway, so, I made a comment to her. I said, well, about tornadoes are only in the Midwest, in the middle of the Americas, and they happen right after harvest, when they stripped all those millions of antennas called wheat from the earth, and the earth has no way to just get rid of that energy. So that's why you have tornadoes at that time of year. I don't know if that's true or not, but it was a phenomenal thing to me because it was right in the time when I was studying the issue of geocentricity, and so
Okay, let me interject right here because, before, and I know we want to keep it right on topic, but if we could not refer to people that, the white people that went to help Rhodesia as freedom fighters, because doing it to protect the banks of Cecil Rhodes and everybody that was the Illuminati that formed Rhodesia is not a freedom fighter. Because in the 1970s, the church that I was working for in the 80s through the 90s and became the athletic director, administrator, coach, at one time we had 4,000 assault weapons underneath the pulpit because we were going to help people invade Rhodesia as freedom fighters. And I realize now that's all the game prop up. So I just wanted to say that I don't consider them freedom fighters. And I don't want my friends to think that I do. But yeah, I understand that he was all these people, just like my son, because my son got, I helped brainwashed him into going to war twice. And now he's got massive blood on his hands. So I have enough of that stuff, but I just had to interrupt because to me, they're not freedom fighters. But I know a lot of people think they are. And it's the same thing in America. Good. Everybody go. The invasion from the north, the invasion from the south. If that's people coming like, oh my gosh, they don't belong in America. There's no room for them. There's plenty of room for people here, and the good ones will take care of and God will help us sort them out. But that's, I'm a little bit different than most white people that are truthers and everything else, and I just am not into that anymore. But go ahead, let's say.
I've heard that, you could have everybody on Earth have their own land in Texas,
Well, we stole it, so we got that. But I don't want, like I said, I don't want to change the topic. I want to stay on volcanoes and what's happening. Not volcanoes, tornadoes.
Yeah. So, the tornado issue is interesting because the next thing is water conducts electricity, right? You don't put your aluminum ladder in a swimming pool and then go work on a light bulb. You might get electrocuted. Or you don't put a metal bar up in the air during a thunderstorm. So when I saw that, and I realized that if you understand aquifers in this country, there's one huge aquifer that used to have enough water to cover the entire United States, 3 to 4 foot deep in water, called the Ogallala Aquifer. And it extends from South Dakota down into Texas and, most of eastern part of Colorado, New Mexico, Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, et cetera, et cetera. And it used to have 300 feet of water. Now it's got about 80 feet. It's going dry. So I made a prediction. This was in November 2013. I made a prediction, wrote out an email, and I said, the Ogallala Aquifer is going dry. That means, therefore, that, and you matched what it really struck me was that you put up a map of Tornado Alley and the Ogallala Aquifer. They're exactly the same parts of the same state. In fact, kind of a mirror image inverse, flipped over. The shape of them even matches, just upside down and backwards, flipped over. So there's something electrical there. But anyway, so I made a prediction. I said the Ogallala Aquifer is going dry. Therefore, there will be fewer tornadoes in Tornado Alley, and they will extend over the rest of the Craton because the Craton is very well grounded. And I had that concept for 2 years. And one day when I was on Dutch Sense, and I discovered the Craton, and that the Craton was 120 miles thick. I told a friend of mine, he said, you really fired back with, he said, well, you've been saying that for some reason the Craton is very well grounded. And so he said, if it's 120 miles thick and it goes down and touches the magma chamber, the magma. Yeah, the mantle of the earth, it's supposedly molten, Well,
that's debatable too.
Yeah, I know, I understand that. I'm just saying that it's, it's grounded. It's deep. It goes very deep. So it's very deeply grounded. So that's my point. So I made the prediction. I said there will be fewer tornadoes in what is usually called Tornado Alley, and they'll extend over the rest of the Craton. And then in May of 2014, I found proof of that there was an article saying had maps of old Tornado Alley and new Tornado Alley, Dixie Tornado Alley, and the fact that tornadoes now, if you look at a map of last year's tornadoes, they'll be spread from the Rockies to the East Coast. They're all over the Craton. and up into Canada, there've been tornadoes up in North Dakota. I mean, I grew up in Aurora, Colorado, and I don't remember ever a tornado ever. Well, twice in 1 week there were 3 tornadoes in Aurora, 2 times. After about 2015 it was, I don't know. But anyway, so there's more tornadoes spread over the rest of the region of the United States, the Craton, because it's well grounded, so it conducts electricity. So tornadoes happen very often there. My point is that there's a huge, vast, untapped source of energy there that we don't make any effort to tap. And if we don't use it, we'll get blasted by it. If we don't use it, James McCanney says, electric universe guy, if we don't use that energy, we'll get get damaged by it in tornadoes and thunderstorms and tornadoes and lightning bolts and whatnot. So if we use it, or at least diffuse it. If you diffuse it, you're going to have negative ions, a massive negative ion area. So that would be good. But if we don't use it, then we'll have tornadoes and lightning storms and whatnot. So that's another very interesting thing about the Ozark Plateau. That's a good place to be, because you'll have fewer tornadoes because of the height of the mountains and whatnot.
Well, am I sharing the screen now?
Yeah, there's a tornado going.
I'm telling you, right now, to me, it's kind of like getting struck by lightning. I'm more worried about getting dragged off the street and having a forced medical procedure done upon me than I am getting hit by a tornado. So I think that might be why most people might be saying, I need a safe place to go where I'm very alone, can grow my own food, and have plenty of way to stay away from the people that might be coming wearing blue helmets.
Yeah. If you look at, there's a county in Missouri called Texas County. It's got very few residents. It's like 9. You can correct me. I don't know. It's maybe 1,200 square miles. I know Cedar County that I'm in is about 400 square miles, 15,000 people. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Texas County is like 1,200 square miles, and it is maybe about 9 or 10,000 people, 12,000. I don't know. It's very sparsely populated. So there's places you can go in here where you can drive a long ways and not have anybody around. I mean, but you don't really want to be alone. You want to have a community of people. So, it goes both ways. It's an issue that a lot of people are going to have to deal with. There's a lot of underground. You look at Earth City sometime. Earth City up by Kansas City. It's an underground city. You can drive in there in a semi. You have to have a map to get around because there's so many tunnels and so many deliveries and so many offices and so many buildings, so many businesses under there. And there's one in Springfield. They're all over. There's big, huge underground cities all over up here. So there's, caverns and caves, and they find caves when they're drilling. They say there's a cave discovered in Missouri every day. So I don't know.
What can you just, tie in the water spouts? Because the people in Europe, they'll see water spouts, but they don't come on land and they don't start with air. If anybody's out there like me wondering about, help me out, man. I gotta fill in that blank.
You're talking about water spouts, like tornado water spouts?
Yeah, they look like tornadoes, but they're on the water, and they really don't hurt the ships and stuff like that. But, they are vortexes.
Yeah. Yeah, that can happen. Tornadoes do weird things. They did, the one in 2003 here in Stockton, the whole square, the city square, banks disappeared. The only thing left was the somebody with a pickup truck and took that, But anyway, so yeah, tornadoes are electrical, and one of the weird things that happened during that tornado was that it moved and shifted and flipped and threw and spun 1,000 gravestones in the cemetery, and that always bothered me. It was like, that's weird. Gravestones, they're stone, they're heavy, So years later, when I discovered the electric universe model, I went, oh my gosh! It followed the highway. There was a place where there was a Napa auto parts store, a Subway, and thrift store, whatever, Dollar General, and that whole thing was all metal building, right? So that whole building was gone. every tool, every battery, everything that was in that place was gone. The only thing that was there was the walk-in cooler. And just a week, they had a guy who was in there, and he talked to, there's a girl in there by herself, and he said, if there's a tornado here, what would you do? She said, I don't know. He said, well, you know what I'd do? If I were you, I'd get in that cooler. I'd get in that walk-in cooler and close the door and wait for somebody to come let you out. She did, and she was there that day by herself when the tornado hit. She went in there and slammed the door, and she was safe inside that walk-in cooler. Everybody else was gone. So anyway, yeah, there's.
You can see I got some. I thought it might just be me, but other people are hearing you kind of choppy. You know, it happened early and it cleared itself up. So I don't know if if there's any way that you can focus more, or we can just see if it's you speaking into the microphone or what. But it's not the air conditioner. It's a choppy, it's a metallic sound. Thank you, Gabby. It's not the air conditioner. It's a warbling sound that's caused by StreamYard probably, and the Wi-Fi connection. But we are.
Well, I think I could turn the AC off and try that for a while. That might do something. Let me do that. It's a little bit later now.
Okay.
I was going to have it turned off anyway and have the fan on. I'll try that. Can you hear me okay here?
I can hear you. Yeah, that sounds a little bit better. I'm showing that the live screen showing pretty calm there. The streets are dead in New Orleans on Bourbon Street, but it looks like they better get ready for a 10-foot storm surge. I don't know what time they have their things, but that's a vortex coming. If you can see where my mouse is, and everything is a vortex. A swastika is a vortex, and it has a swastika and a svastika, in with the good blood, out with the bad, in with the good air, out with the bad. But let's stay on topic, man. Quit trying to get me off topic. Yeah. And because
so yeah, the electrical thing. So years later, I was driving by with a friend, the cemetery, and I made the comment. I said, I never knew why the tornado flipped so many gravestones. And I said, I finally figured it out. I said, I was thinking about it, and I went, but the gravestones are stone. I said, but what's below the gravestones? Metal coffins. That's why it was a feeding frenzy for this tornado to ground out. And so that's why my friend said right away, he goes, yeah, but it wasn't the wind, Jerry. I went, what? He goes, it was a Hutchison effect. It was the electromagnetic null gravity effect. The wind didn't throw the gravestones. They lifted in null gravity. They just floated. So, and I've heard other stories of that with a tornado had just gone by a guy's house, and he and the neighbor stepped outside, and while they both watched, the tornado was gone and off in the distance. While they watched, the guy's car floated up in the air and moved over and just set against the fence, and then it came down like this. So they jacked the car up, and moved the fence and then let it back down, jacked it down. So, yeah, it's a very bizarre.
I heard of people that sheltered in a bathtub, got taken out by a tornado, and they landed like a quarter mile away and lived. I know that's an exception, not a rule. I see. We just had that black screen. We just keep going. But now, Jerry, have you ever seen those pictures? Because something else is going on besides the vortex. Because I've seen after a tornado the pictures of a 2x4 through a tree.
Yeah,
and it's not
or a straw, a drinking straw through the tree. Yeah, and that's just an energy. Like Jesus passed through the wall. Just,
I think so. Maybe we should look up I want to look up a Bible verse, and then we'll get right back to the thing. But, okay, that might be considered a little bit of a sidetrack, but I think you'll like it, because it's the only thing that explains a tornado forcing a straw through a tree and the straw doesn't get crushed, or the 2x4s through a tree, or 2x4 through a tree and it's not just splintered. So am I sharing the screen?
Yeah, you're looking up a verse,
Okay.
Deuteronomy.
I'd like your comment on this verse. You can, I prefer the English Standard or Berean Study, but if you want to read King James, just, pick one there. But I'm going to explain this verse to me. The secret things belong to the Lord our God, but the things revealed belong to us and to our children forever, so that we may follow all the words of this law.
Yeah, that's excellent.
Isn't that, because it hasn't been revealed to anybody how a straw can get through a tree without breaking.
Yeah.
But it has been revealed that according to the scripture, Jesus raised from the dead on the third day, and that those that are drawn to him by the Father can have eternal life. So we know those are things that have been revealed in our life. Thank you, Father. Thank you. But straws and taxes.
Proverbs 25 verse 2 says, "It is the glory of Yahweh to conceal a thing, but the honor of, or the glory of kings is to search out a matter."
Amen, brother.
So
that's Luther the Luther's favorite verse. I have a friend, he might show up here tonight. It's Yah's will soaring, and that's his favorite verse.
Yeah.
That's his favorite verse.
So it's, he conceals things, and it's up to people that are, given to be leaders to, to ferret them out, to figure it out, I was at a gathering. It was called the First International Ocean Builders Conference. And one of the speakers was Pastor Michael Peebles. And he made a statement that just floored me. My jaw dropped open. He said, everything that happened to Messiah and everything that happened to King David, and I would personally add everything that happened to Joseph, in their lives is happening right now in the lives of those whom Yahweh has raised up to lead his people in these end times. So that blew me away. I was like, yeah, boy, I've been made homeless. I've been cast outside the camp. I've been, this and that. It's been one trial after another, the last 7 years. So it's been very difficult. But
yeah, well, we want, people that don't read the Bible don't realize that even after Abraham was called, it wasn't all just fun and games, man. And yay, now I can name it and claim it, confess it and possess it, and I'll be happy ever after. Just the trouble he had alone because his wife was so beautiful was enough to drive most men to insanity. And then, the Lot and the fighting giants, it just was life is living, and people, and which one of the prophets didn't they kill? Which ones did they believe? It's never going to be easy for, it never is that, confess Christ and all your problems go away. Yeah, and I know I want to emphasize, I'm not sure that's his favorite verse, but that's the one that we've talked about. So keep going, brother. What else you got there now? So it's people that are smart, people that have been paying attention. They know something's in the air. They're going to have to do something, and the Lord might, trigger my mind that fight or flight, and now it's just time to flee. You're saying don't just flee to anywhere. They should be thinking about safe places. And you believe Springfield, Missouri, and that area of the Ozarks is about as good as it gets?
Yeah. Now, interesting, you just had read that verse, and I was just thinking of something about, I read the verse about the wisdom of, is the glory of God to conceal him. And the same Hebrew word says, where it says it's the honor of kings, it's also, you could say it's the glory of kings to search it out. But you just read this, and I had just already been on my sword, but I opened it up and I didn't touch anything. I could screenshot this and send it to you right now. I was going to try to find Ecclesiastes, that verse you said last night. And it was already open to it. It was already open.
Ecclesiastes 9:6.
Yeah, I know. It was already open to it.
Oh, wow. Good. Oh, good. Yeah, because we were looking at
this wisdom have I seen under the sun, and it seemed great unto me. there was a little city and a few men within it, and there came a great king against it and besieged it and built great bulwarks against it. Now there was found in it a poor wise man, and he by his wisdom delivered the city. Yet no man remembereth that same poor man. Then said I, wisdom is better than strength. Never let the poor man's wisdom be despised, and his words are not heard. Boy, is that the case, but in 2015, I came to the realization that I'm a nobody who's been nowhere and done nothing, and I like that's kind of interesting because in 1 Corinthians, it says, Paul says, God uses the weak things of the world to confound the mighty, and the foolish things of the world to confound the wise, and he uses the things that are nothing to bring to nothing the things that are. So I'm all ready to be used, I'm just a worthless nobody.
Amen.
But I do believe, but that verse there, the wise man, the Ecclesiastes, that's from Ecclesiastes 9:13 through basically just read the whole thing, 18 even.
Let me pull it up so they can read along with you.
There you go. Start with verse 10 even. That's very apropos.
I'm just going to give you the whole thing. Where do you want to start at, Jerry?
Well, you can read whatever you want, but 10, I would say at least.
Alrighty. Well, let's just read 9 so that some of these people that unfortunately, and we've all been down this road where we thought, well, I have a great wife, but though, that computer is drawing me. And we got to put that behind us, people. Ecclesiastes 9, verse 9, continuing through the end of the chapter. Enjoy life with the wife whom you love all the days of your vain life that he has given you under the sun, because that is your portion in life, and in your toil at which you toil under the sun. Whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might, for there is no work or thought or knowledge or wisdom in hell to which you are going. Again, I saw that under the sun, the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, nor bread to the wise. I'm in the wrong chapter, aren't I? Oh, no. Okay. Yeah, you wanted to start there. Sorry. This is good stuff, but it changes quickly at 11. So I'm going to start at verse 10 again. Whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might, for there is no work or thought or knowledge or wisdom in Sheol to which you are going. Again, I saw that under the sun, the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, nor bread to the wise, nor riches to the intelligent, nor favor to those with knowledge. But time and chance happen to them all, for man does not know his time. Like fish that are taken in an evil net, and like birds that are caught in a snare, so the children of man are snared at an evil time when it suddenly falls upon them. I have also seen this example of wisdom under the sun, and it seemed great to me. There was a little city with few men in it, and a great king came against it, and besieged it, and built great siege works and redoubts against it. But there was found, I added that, but there was found in it a poor wise man, and he by his Sophia, his wisdom, delivered the city. So no one remembered the poor man. But I say that wisdom is better than might, though the poor man's wisdom is despised, and his words are not heard. The words of the wise, heard in quiet, are better than the shouting of a ruler among fools. Wisdom is better than weapons of war, but one sinner destroys much good. I'm glad you brought that back up again, Jerry. Appreciate that, brother. Are you
What's
froze
that?
now? I'm glad you brought that verse up.
I can hear you. I hope I wasn't interrupting.
Oh,
trying to
no,
figure out
no.
where we're at.
We did could you hear me when I was reading the scriptures?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. No, we're good. Yeah, keep going.
I don't have a screen though.
You know, you brought it up. I know it's on your mind, brother. Go ahead and let's hear it.
Yeah. So from there, I would just, that verse in Ecclesiastes and the one that I read, from Proverbs, the glory of God to conceal the matter and whatnot. So one thing that I've seen in history, and this is just something, this is just an observation, but you had a situation in history where you had the French and the Spanish navies, there, Spanish Armada and the French fleets were going to try to defeat the British at Gibraltar. And I don't know what year that was, but 18 something. And there was a guy put in charge of protecting Gibraltar, defending Gibraltar. And there's a poem written about it, and it says, the French and the Spanish navies combined are but throwing their stink pots you see from behind. That the fortress will stand you may own is no wonder, for all they are doing is but farting at thunder. So the man put in charge of defending Gibraltar was one of my ancestors on my wife's side, but George Eliot. And that's my pen name on my book, the name of my book, and How to Get Out of Babylon. I used Jeremiah Eliot for that reason. But anyway, so this guy was in charge of defending against a coming onslaught, a coming siege, and they bombarded it. And there's a cartoon drawn, a political cartoon of the day drawn about it, and it shows the commanders of the French and the Spanish navies bent over with their butts facing Gibraltar, and they're farting out, little cannonballs, and Gibraltar's pouring down cannonballs on them, but their cannonballs were just, just fart, they're just farting thunder. They were farting at thunder, and they didn't win because the guy that was in charge of defending Gibraltar did a good job of it. So I've seen for many years that that's kind of what I was. Maybe there's somebody else I wish there was. I wish there's somebody better suited than me, better trained, better equipped. But I saw a job and I was like, okay, well, nobody else is going to do it. I'll do what I can to prepare this area for that time, And I think that time is coming up. We're going to see surrounding I want to say too at this point that there's a guy who is they call him the praying prophet, whatever, Henry Gruver, and he had a lot of visions and dreams about coming invasion of America by Russia. And he was in Washington D.C. and he's looking at all the state capital great seals of the different states, like Kansas, per astra, through the stars, through work, per astra, ad astra per labore, whatever. So that was one. And then when he got to Missouri State Seal, his mouth dropped about the floor. He said, "The Missouri State Seal is all of my dreams and visions encompassed in the symbolic form in a great seal of a state, because it's a circular area of two bears with their reaching paws over the top and their feet, their toes pointing to each other at the bottom. Russian bear, because he sees Russia, invading America, and encircling an area in America." That they'd be wiped out, destroyed by Yahweh. So,
excuse me 1 second, and I Ash, I hate to interrupt you, but something's going on with your microphone where it's like it's getting like a heartbeat, a bump, 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 bump. Let me know if I'm only hearing that. If anybody nobody said anything in the comments, but
yeah, if you're hearing it, probably they are.
So I don't know if it's getting rocked or what. But go ahead now. Who was that person that was in your family that did that at Gibraltar?
George Eliot.
George Eliot. Okay.
Yeah. And he actually was a poem written about him by I think Robert Burns or somebody, that he said that
he's famous.
Yeah, I lost a limb and I lost a leg and an arm, blah blah blah. But with Eliot to lead me, I'd walk on my knees. If I'd follow him on my knees, even though he'd lost his legs at somewhere, bombardment or something. So, yeah, Eliot was very, very famous because of that. So, yeah, but the idea is that he was appointed by the crown, by the government, and by the military to do a job of preparing for a besiegement. And he did that. And that's what I see happening here, is that the Ozark Plateau is a giant 50,000 square mile castle with water underneath it everywhere. You talk about water spouts where there's 2.5 billion gallons of water coming out of the ground every day. Whether there's rain or not, drought, doesn't matter what kind of drought you've had, there's still water coming out of the ground in springs. That's just their springs are rated in magnitude, okay? Over 100 cubic feet per second CFS, you know, from 10 to 100, from 1 to 10. The first 3 magnitudes of springs, they're the only ones they keep track of. That's 2.5 billion gallons of water coming out of the ground every day. So, you know, just come to the Ozark Plateau, find a spring and camp out near it, you know, or, you know, they're everywhere. There are a lot of them around, you know. When I was in Arkansas, I could drive about 10 minutes in any direction and find a spring and, you know where they are and get water, you know, real fresh drinking water, good drinking water. So, but the ones here are so big. There's 20. What's that?
Yeah, there's nothing. There's nothing more than important. People don't need to be getting diabetes. You could practically live off water and oatmeal, and be strong and healthy. So you don't need a McDonald's on your corner. People, get your butt down to where. What'd you say that water's coming out of the ground almost freezing, right? At 2 billion gallons a day.
Yeah, 2.5 billion gallons a day, and that's just the first 3 magnitudes. There's 5 more. There's 8 magnitudes of springs. So you go canoeing or kind of kayaking in the Ozarks. You know, you go down a river, and you swim along, and it's 100 degrees outside, and all of a sudden you about freeze to death because there's a 3-foot hole in the under. You can't see it, but there's a 3-foot wide spring comes shooting out into it, and you've got to freeze yourself. So you know they're everywhere. They're underneath trees, and they're coming out of buildings and coming out of rocks. I've been to several of them. The Roaring River comes out of a gigantic, like you imagine a 30 or 40 foot high slabs of rock against it, like forming an A. There's a river coming out of there. They've never been able to plumb the depths of it because there's so much force coming up that they can't drop a weight big enough and heavy enough to go down in there. But it comes up out of the ground, out of the mountain. And there's a fish hatchery there. Crystal Lake Fish Hatchery is another one. But another really cool one is Bennett Springs. There's a big hole in the ground, about 20, 30 feet wide. There's no water that way, no water this way. Other 3 directions, there's no water. There's no water, no water coming to it. And there's a hole in the ground. There's a river coming out of that hole, and it's the Niangua. I think it's the Niangua River, but it's an ice cold water fish hatchery. Crystal Lake Fish Hatchery is another one. And I've been to Hodgkin Mills. There's ones when you buy wheat and flour and pancake mix, Hodgkin Mills. That picture on that box is that mill looks exactly like that. It looks like they could cut the lock, flip the lever, and the thing would still be running. But there's no fish hatchery there for some reason. I don't know why. It's just like a photo up for 4th of July and weddings and stuff. That's not really done. They don't do anything with it, but it's a good enough size spring. It's bigger than spring than the Crystal Lake Fish Hatchery. So it's a big spring, but anyway, so there's springs everywhere, all around throughout the Ozarks. 20 large springs in Missouri is a good website to look at. Get an idea. I would just try to find land downstream from one of those big springs, and you have water forever. You know, you never run out of it. And there's a saying that says many of the large rivers of Missouri come from water so deep, springs so deep, and water so cold that droughts do not affect them. They come from, I believe, the firmament. You know, they're very, very cold, and so God's natural water filtration system. He puts cold water in, takes dirt out. I think one guy asked the question of, there's places where the tide are 40 feet higher, high tide and low difference from high tide to low tide is 4 foot difference. There's a place where it's only 1 foot difference. He said the deep or near the place where there's 40-foot difference. That's a good question, and where does water come from, Maybe it comes from outside the firmament.
Yeah, Joel just, and there he goes. Joel, I was just typing this message because all of a sudden he was breaking up and my internet wasn't that bad. Hopefully he'll join. Here he comes.
Easily.
Are you there? There you are, Jerry. I can hear you. You're on a black screen, but I hear you. Yeah, it was getting really bad there, and it just was degrading. And I don't know. Maybe try it again, brother. I want to hear your voice now.
Yeah. If I'm careful where I hold it, that would make a difference. Probably, I was maybe getting careless. I don't even remember.
I would put it down. I would put it down and speak into it in, and just once it gets good, leave it there and don't touch it. And sometimes even with what I found, just slowing down the enunciation, just a fraction helps a whole lot, because it's
I know I'm
too much and it's mincing words and giving that kind of delay. But I find this fascinating. I want to, I mean, what are people going to want to hear? I mean, man, we've got, the deal is, like right now we're seeing people, even with the news, and it's pretty hard to fake a hurricane coming at you and be like, well, that's not going to happen. Something's going to happen to New Orleans. Some people have, are saying it was going to happen in 2021, and other people are saying it doesn't count because I said it was going to happen in 2020. No, I didn't. Do I wish I had my 4,500 videos back and I didn't have them all taken down from YouTube? Yes, because a lot of them, I didn't push that. Mirror it, do this for me, do that for me. I barely asked for any money unless I was homeless. But I did say it was this year. Everything's coming right now. People that are paying attention should be frightened. And when they leave, they got to go somewhere. And I think we all agree, Jerry, it's got to be higher ground.
Yeah. Yeah, I told you the story about, the Russians who have multiple prophecies in their groups. Were Christian Russians that escaped Russia during the 70s and 80s, and they have multiple prophecies in their groups that the ocean levels would rise, and they needed to go inland and to higher ground. I need to go inland and to higher ground. 19-year-old kid, Alexander the Great, told me that. I used to stand on the coast in Washington, and in the back of my mind, I could see the ocean levels rise, and I knew I needed to go inland and to higher ground. So that weekend, I talked to a friend of mine. I said, hey, I met a kid talking about getting inland and to higher ground. That's why he's here in the Ozarks. And he goes, oh, there's hundreds of Christians in Springfield. And they have multiple prophecies in their groups, saying that they need to go inland and to higher ground. So, yeah, very, very amazing, very interesting. Just, another telltale thing. And there's another interesting thing, that there's an entire worldwide group of Russian gardeners. They're not Christians. They're just, what do you call it, like Ayurvedic, like you have the Rig Veda, the Hindu stuff, Vedic stuff, Vedic writings, VEDIC. Okay, well, these people call themselves Vedic Rus, Vedic Russian, Rus, like the old word, And they believe that I was told this by one of their members, one of the people, and she said, "Where are you from?" I said, Missouri, and she goes, "Oh, Ava, Missouri is." The Cringing Cedars people consider that to be the center of the safest place on earth, and they're recommending that their people go there. So you got millions of people worldwide, they're involved in that movement. It's a whole movement of gardeners, homesteaders, And
well, how do you know that that's not the attack from the Russians that are going to, that planned attack right there in the middle? I mean, if you knew somebody that had a prophecy that Russia was going to invade, and now they're saying we want to invade to go to your sweet spot, oh no. I'm just kidding, man. But I mean, it's all nations, all kindreds, all tribes. And, once we're separated from the cities, because some people aren't going to leave the city no matter what, man. They're going to die waiting for the McDonald's to open because they don't know how to make their own Egg McMuffin.
Stop it. Yeah. Here's what I see. In the book of Acts, you had the people out in the countries. They had a big influx of believers. 3,000 people were converted on the day of Pentecost. And the people out in the country sold their lands in the country and gave them laid the money at the apostles' feet so that they could take care of the people in the city. So it was it was this big evangelistic effort to care for the believers in the city. But the opposite, I believe, is true today. We need to sell our properties in the city and get out in the country. And some people are finally waking up. I mean, I've talked to people that are just finally thinking about doing that. But we need to get the money from the cities and invest it in the rural areas, especially where you can survive, where you could be free for a long period of time. So, and that's at least get rural if nothing else. But if your plan A don't work out, then plan on try to have a plan B, and if plan B don't work out, then come to the Ozark Plateau. I believe there will be just millions and millions of people coming here on foot. Really, honestly, I think they'll wait long enough. They won't be driving; they'll be walking.
Well, I think I'd like to try driving it up there, because walking, it takes so long.
Yeah. And if you haven't read the book Lights Out, you should read that, because it's got a really good depiction of walking from Waco to San Antonio or something like that. So I read it on my channel. I got 242. It took me 242 videos to get through it, but I got a playlist of Lights Out by David Crawford, and it's an awesome book. To me, it's hands down the best post-toasty, end of the world scenario book ever written, because it's so practical. It's got really good practical information about that you will need to know to, for people to know to keep their family alive. Things to think through, emotional things, mental things, physical things to prepare for. And it is a really good book, and it's also kind of written from more of a Christian perspective than a lot of other books. For many decades, I considered Lucifer's Hammer to be the best post-toast end of the world book, but I think Lights Out is much better from the aspect because of the fact that it's not written from a pagan viewpoint. So,
a lot of pagans into wanting to write books about how to survive God's judgment.
Well, it was the end of the world. It had nothing to do with God's judgment. It was a comet hitting the earth, but anyway.
Oh. Yeah, they don't believe in God anyway. That's like, I spent, with Tommy and I were watching about 3 hours of prayer conversation, watching videos, and I'm glad that people still put out the flat earth videos about, wow, you can zoom in on a ship on the horizon, but what we're trying, is to get people that it's imminent, that Jesus already returned and everything, and I know that's not part of a survival, but the people you're talking to here, we're convinced we don't need any more books. We don't need one more author, one more essay about the end is nigh. We believe the end was nigh then, now Satan's loose, and we believe that the end is coming for the very last time. And we really do like to keep that stress on Armageddon's over, and here's why. And I know that might sound like changing a topic, but we're looking for more specifics about here's a good place right here. We don't need one more convincing of we got to go someplace. We're looking for a place to go. And I'm not trying to say, don't do that for other people, but we don't need to hear about books written by pagans, books written by Mormons that, things are going to get bad. We need a place to go. We're looking for, there's not going to be GPS in this world. So let's look at it on a map. What are you talking about? Where do we go? We don't need to be convinced that is about to hit the fan. You know what I mean? And I hope I said that I said it as graciously as I could, but we're sold. You got us. We're already like that old movie. You had us at its ending. Or you had me at hello. Is that what it was? But I just know, are you still there, Jerry? So yeah. I'm probably off. There's a lot of time. So let's look at let's look at a map of Missouri. and we'll just say, you know, what is a good satellite map? What? It's not. It's an E, not an I. What's a good map? Satellite map. Of course, that's what I meant. So this is the town you're talking about, right? Wow.
See, I'm not seeing it right now.
Oh, okay. Thank
Screen
you.
went blank.
My screen went blank?
On my phone, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I know I don't have a
It'll-
screen. Oh, there. Okay, now I'm seeing you. I see you, but not me.
No, you should just see the map in a second. Otherwise, you know, we're pretty close to that. Well, let me just end that share and try to start another one. Let me know. Do you see that satellite image? Wow, holy cow. I guess I'm going to put in, I don't know if Jerry can hear me. All of a sudden, we're not
I
responding.
can hear you, yeah. I'm
But
trying
you
to find
couldn't
something,
see
but
what,
yeah.
but was I share? I'm going to put in, was I sharing?
What was that?
I'm asking the people in the chat room if I was sharing, because I was showing a map and it looked like I was sharing and you couldn't see it. So I don't know if it was you or me, but what do you see now? Give it a few seconds. Jerry. Huh. Yeah, Jerry's screen is, yeah, they see the map. So Jerry, I think that you might be glitching out right now. So Victoria wants to bring some supplies. Yeah, you just came back in, Jerry. You were gone for about a minute, man. All right, let's look at the map. Jerry, say something when you get in. I don't even know if he's looking at the comments.
Yeah.
So we've got, I don't know if you can hear me or something, but here's this Caldorna. So we can see, you know, this is kind of an elevated section that he's talking about. We have it in Missouri, Arkansas, comes over here to like Cape Girardeau, Cairo, Illinois, which, you know, is because the United States used to be called Egypt. And the Mississippi was probably the Nile, at least it's a possibility. So he lives somewhere in here. And Bentonville is where Tommy from Texas, Touchdown Tommy, my little brother, the football hero, she lives in Bentonville and just had the first granddaughter in the Tommy Gartman era. So it goes from here all the way up to here, everybody, is where you're going to want to be, but you're going to want to stay out of, the bigger cities. And none of these actually look too darn big. I think I heard a pop in like he came back in. So
I don't have a split screen right now.
no, did you see the map I was talking about?
No, I still don't.
That's crazy, man, because now you have a split screen, right?
Oh, okay, I got you. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah.
Okay, now if you see me when I do share screen, everybody else was seeing the map. You don't see the map?
Yeah, I see it now.
Okay, it must have just been glitching you out. They're not going to make it easy on us, brother.
I was a minute and 20 minutes off of you.
Oh. Well, I don't know how that happened. But what is this big lake right here, man? Is that the river or what?
That's Lake of the Ozarks, it looks like.
That's the Lake of the Ozarks?
Yeah. Like I said, it looks like a dragon.
There isn't going to be any Lake of the Ozark. That's going to drain, baby, because that's being held in by all of their propped up hydroelectric dams that were built in between the wars, the world wars, and the winner of the world wars rewrite the history. Am I correct that this is a man-made lake from in between the wars?
Yeah, so I'm sure it is. The whole lake system is the U.S. Corps of Engineers. So yeah, that'll be some really rich farmland if it drains. No big deal.
And
I wouldn't want to be downstream of it because it would be a hellacious mess.
Nobody's going to want to be. Especially if you're in New Orleans, you're not going to want to be there when that happens. But you know what? You know what I think we're going to find. Look, everybody, you look at where it's here. And then give it a few seconds, and it'll clear up. But these are your mountains and stuff. And when these clear, you know what we're going to find there? The same thing that we'll find when we can finally tour the Grand Canyon, or when we can finally get people to go back looking. It's going to be cliff dwellings, Mesa Verde, tunnels where people fled and hid because they were listening and trusting the Lord Jesus Christ when they said, flee to the mountains, hide in the mountains, they fall on me, cover me from the wrath of God. And like I was explaining to you when we were learning, trying to get better at Screencastify this afternoon. Oh, I forget what I was going to say, but I know I was telling you something important and it'll come back to me when the Lord wants it to. Go, Jerry. What do you got to say? You think that they could be drained and we could find tunnel systems where people were like Mesa Verde type things, people living in the cliffs, people living in the rocks?
I don't know. Maybe, there's enough caves underground to, probably house most of the population of the state. So not that big of a deal. There's, like I said, look at Earth City. You got to have a map of it. If you're semi-drivers, about 1,000 semis can be in there driving around underneath there.
Right.
So there's cities underground.
And if they think that they're going to be able to leave their cities and come down and track down all of our people, if we want to hide them from the 5G and other medical interventions that we don't want, we can hide from them without going to war and killing them. We can make them walk home. They can come out. We can have warriors all of a sudden open fire on their tires.
I love so many aspects of this. Yeah. The phrase of the passage in Revelation, I'm sure you're familiar with it. It says, the woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle and was flown out into the wilderness. And the dragon was wroth with the woman, and he spewed out a flood. But the earth opened the woman, and it swallowed up the flood. And that could be water. It could be heat. Earth will swallow up heat. It'll swallow up radiation. It'll swallow up bad frequencies. So
right.
It'll swallow
the
up
earth opened and it swallowed the water. The earth opened and swallowed the water because Satan had come up with a way to flood and kill the Messiah, but And, just as a quick side note, I say that when that happened and it swallowed the water, the way it swallowed the water, it didn't just go down a tunnel. It went it flooded the earth and it exposed the old canals, aqueducts, and everything else, because the reason that the flat earth didn't need rain in the Genesis 1 creation was because that verb there was a mist that went up. It was that the world was irrigated. All of the step irrigations and all of the canal systems around the world that we go, wow, when could they have built this? And they rewrote the wars and gave us the canal mania, and it was all done in 30 years as a joke. That was the original, the whole earth was canaled. It was made by God for man. That's what I believe.
Yeah.
But, we're here to talk about safe places so that, I think these are going to drain, and who cares? It'll just make it harder for them to come and find us. It will provide more places to hide and more places where there's been soil that hasn't been contaminated with pesticides, because our farmers don't let the fields rest anymore, and we keep sucking the nutrients out of them. And when that doesn't work, we add nitrogen. Look at the difference in this land, people, where it's just all green, and then I bet that's the caldera or something. Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah, I think, the earth I think we'll see that swallowing up the flood on multiple facets, because, grounding is very important. You can detox from poison. I accidentally poisoned myself one time with nicotine.
Okay.
And I was dying.
No.
And I crawled downstairs and detoxed through the concrete. It neutralized the poison in my body. But another thing is that when a lady, her daughter was having nightmares, every monster, like demonic attacks every night, and she got her a silver thread grounded sheet, and she plugged it in, and next morning she said, "How did you sleep, darling?" And the girl says, "I slept great, Mommy. The monsters came, but the silver sheet swallowed them up." So the earth swallowed up the demons, the grounding absorbed the demonic.
Since everybody here already thinks that, well, most everybody here already thinks revelation happens. We think that has been already happened, and we're already at a point of where the reason that Ecclesiastes could correctly teach at that time that all the rivers flow to the sea, and they don't anymore, and now we have recent endorheic basins all around the world on every continent. We think that part's already happened, and that that we're not Satan is loosed right now, bent on gathering an army to go against Gog and Magog. And if people want to really be healthy, there's a lot of different things that everybody suggests. And now I understand grounding. I've heard about the Faraday cages and everything else. But what's the number one thing you can do for your health? Stop eating white sugar.
Yeah, absolutely.
Stop eating the white things. If people are eating white flour and white sugar, you're just not paying attention.
The whiter the better, the sooner you're dead. J. Vernon McGee. Right. No, that was
there's three things that the Lord has had on my mind since even before I knew about flat earth. I was teaching sweat, stretch, and eat organic. Eat food that hasn't been pesticided to the best of your ability. Eat food that you can trust, that hasn't been sold to you by SpaghettiOs. I mean, if even half the things, the reason that they can call Taco Bell meat is because they've registered that term or something, but because it's not, it's like 8% meat from what I've heard. I could be wrong on that number. I'm not going to.
McDonald's feeding recycled aborted fetuses, you know, McDonald's meat.
Right. And we can't take that. We can't just go like, I'll eat what I want, man. We are the temple of God, and we believe that, or we just think, I don't care what those guys say. And unfortunately, we get a lot of huge people that were great football stars when they were young because of their metabolism could handle it. But then they kept eating like that. They're pushing 400 pounds. They're dropping like flies. And if somebody goes, oh, I'm a vegetarian, they judge them. Oh, freaking vegans, man. They're so freaking stupid. Why would they want to do that? Because they don't want diabetes. They don't want to go blind at 60. They don't want to have their foot cut off at age 50. And maybe it's time to say, wow, if they can do that, and maybe they're not just doing it to be vain or smug, but they actually want to live longer, healthier, you know, we should.
Very important. I agree. And there's two cases I can think of right now that a few days ago I read a thing where a cheerleader, high school cheerleader, perfect health condition, went to the beach and it was a hot day. She drank nothing but Red Bulls and energy drinks, and she dropped dead of a heart attack. And another one is I know that a woman I know went to McDonald's on the way to a doctor appointment, got a double latte, double espresso, drank it, and hit the doctor, and her pulse was 165, you know, pulse. So she ended up 3 weeks in the hospital and getting a COVID test, and something stuck up into her brain in the forehead, the front part of her brain, you know, that test thing, they jammed it up in there.
No.
They thought they were going to push her eyeball out, you know, she was screaming at the top of her lungs. But now because of the stupid McDonald crap, she's sloughing off, you know, crap from the spike proteins in her body. Basically been infected by that disease, whatever the hell it is.
My
Nanobacteria.
It breaks my heart. I heard another heartbreaking story in the news today, and I see Scotty, he's from Chicago. He'll understand how this could happen up there in Crook County. But there was a mother and a father who had been divorced for, 7 years. And then there was something about readjusting payments and things like that. And while they were in court, and the father hadn't even said, I want this or that. He still wanted to share their child, but the judge saw that the lady hadn't been vaccinated. And she said, until you're vaccinated, you don't get your son. You don't get to share time with your son until you can prove you've been vaccinated. And that's in the news today.
Yeah.
That's
a lot of weird stuff like that.
They're out of control. Ruger. Let's look to go ahead, brother. Anything you want to say? I have
well, I'm gonna drop back to something you said. Your people don't need to be convinced to do something. And I wanted to say that opening.
No, that's not what I said, Jerry. I said my people don't need to be convinced that the end is nigh, especially by pagans, Mormons, or anybody else, because they already know it based on the Bible.
I want to agree with you, though. In my book, in my preface, I said that I'm not trying to convince people to go do something. I'm trying to tell the people that know they need to do something where to go, how to go about doing it. So I'm not trying to convince anybody that they got to do it. I'm not trying to, I'm speaking to the choir, hopefully,
You are.
And that's what my whole book is about, is like, what kind of house do you need to live in? What kind of what area do you need to go to? And speaking of being underground and wanting to be underground, the thing that prompted this whole thing, How to Get Out of Babylon, and the whole book, and was a vision that I had. And I'll just try to describe it briefly for those people who haven't heard me say this. I was my wife was a midwife at the time, and my wife at the time was a midwife at the time. Both are no longer there. But anyway, so she was at staying in a dormitory waiting for her mom to give birth. It was 3 hours from our house. So we went down there, and it was a Friday night, and I was getting ready to go to a craft show with my son to, make money, work with friends. They did this show on Saturday. We did it on Sunday. And they did Sunday church, and we did Saturday church, Sabbath church. So anyway, so we're going to go to that craft show. Well, Friday night, I didn't see her but once a week, so we had done what married couples do, right? So I'm wide awake. I'm still breathing pretty hard, and I'm on my elbow. I'm leaning up. I'm not sitting. I'm not laying down. My head not looking at the ceiling. I'm looking directly away from me, directly away from the pillows, the bed head, the head of the bed, And all of a sudden I'm in this Technicolor vision, and I see two woods, forest, and a young couple, mom and dad, each holding a boy and a girl's hand, coming toward me, directly toward me, and they curl off to their left, to my right. And I look over to my right, and I see the door of an underground house. And there's a note on the door. It says, "If you find this house, it's yours. We built it for you." And inside there was a stove with the wood already ready to light up, wooden matches, canned goods, pots, pans, silverware, plates, saucers, cups, everything, the whole 9 yards. And we were building these houses out in the woods, for people to find as they came in, so they'd have a house ready for them. And it was just such an overpowering feeling of love, of just, this is what heaven is. Heaven consists of caring for other people and doing something for them, even though you may never even meet them. And it was such an overpowering sense of love. I mean, I usually can't even talk about it without, kind of getting choked up, which I am a little bit here. So I slapped myself. Get a grip on yourself, Jerry. I slapped myself in the face now.
Go for it.
Get a grip on yourself, since nobody else can do it. So anyway, so I literally, chest heaving, gut wrenching, I was just choking. I couldn't talk. I cried for like an hour and a half. And my wife is there like, "What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong?" And I never did I don't remember that I ever explained it to her or told her, what I saw. And I think that was like the end of our marriage, because I wasn't really on board with helping out with that. So anyway, it's just, that's what I saw. And now, many years later, almost 15 years later.
Let me say something here. Now, I thought that you were the one who found a house. In your dream, you were the one that was supposed to build those houses?
Yeah, we had maybe just finished building or something. For whatever reason, I was there, and I knew that the house had been built by us people, whatever, remnant believers, for whoever found it, yeah. And it was just an overpowering sense of love. I couldn't talk for like an hour, literally. It was so powerful. And that's what I sensed. I knew everything, and I saw things in the house. I knew what it was. So many years later, I was talking about it and said, well, it was invisible. And the guy said, well, there's probably a good reason for that now, with drones and surveillance and infrared and, visual infrared and, drones and everything. So if we were building underground houses, it'd be easy to do. So ever since then, I've looked at every single type of alternative home, studied them to the nth degree. And then my final question would be, could this explain what I saw in that vision? And no. So I'm still praying for the final answer, but I think aircrete has something to do with it. Dome structure, rocket stoves, the whole 9 yards, where you wouldn't have a thermal or smoke signature, any kind of telltale sign that anybody was there, they could hunker down and be quiet, and there would be no sign that anybody was living there. And a guy near here built an underground house, and he even painted the vents camouflage. You could walk right on and not even know you're there, not even know you're on it, and unless you walked right over the doorway, the front doorway. So anyway, yeah, underground I think is going to be very important, to absorb the heat, absorb cold. And the thing about an underground house is, it's about 50 to 60 degrees, Earth temperature. So in the summertime, you don't have to really cool it because you're at 60 degrees. And in the wintertime, you don't have to heat it because you're at 60 degrees, and you don't need to have any more. You can, but you would not have to have heat in an underground house or cooling, either one. So that's another good reason to have an underground home, earth sheltered home or whatever, because it's
right.
It's very
Earthship. I stayed in an Earthship house. I got to visit them. I squatted in the pyramid that the 1970s. I forget his name, but he invented the Earthship house, and they're they don't build them with air conditioners or heaters. They're right outside of Taos, New Mexico. It works. It took some refining, but they got it now.
Yep.
You can do it, people. This can be done. Yeah, you're not going to be living in a city. It isn't going to be a time of mammon, of like, look at my new Prada boots. oh, Prada, I'm all Jimmy Choo. Prada was 2 years ago. No. How about you got some good shoes and some good moccasins and things like that? That's what it's all about.
Yeah. And one guy in one of the comments, he said he had a dream. It was up in Montana that he saw it, but he said everybody was working together and building a house and nobody had a mortgage. And I was like, that's exactly what I say in my book. We have to build our own homes, and we can do it if a bunch of people, if 10 guys got together, 10 families got together, they could do it. You could build everybody build their own home, and they would not have a mortgage to a bank. Mortgage is a death pledge, mortician, mortuary, whatever, death pledge. That's a French word, death pledge. Mortgage is a death pledge. They're betting that you die before you pay that mortgage off so they can sell it again, And we don't need that. There's no reason to be beholden to a bank or anybody for your house. You can build a house for what you make in 6 months. That's what Henry David Thoreau said in the book Walden. He said any man can build a house for what he makes in 6 months, and that's still true. You may not be a mansion, may not be a mansion, might even be a cracker box, but you can build a house for what you make in 6 months. If you make $1,000 a month, you can build a house for $6,000. People do it all the time. So
absolutely. Yeah. In a comfortable house, that's not going to need a $16,000 furnace, stove, everything else,
When I was in Kansas and we were going to expos and things, we stayed a couple of times with this lady who was the Vitamin Pickle Cottage, and she became very famous, and her pickles and relishes and dips and everything were in every Cracker Barrel in the country. And she said she'd been given a vision. She said Jesus came to her and said that he's going to give her 7 years of plenty to prepare for 7 years of hard times. And then she was just selling stuff on the road, dirt poor, gardening, and she canned some stuff, went on the road and sold it. And the first guy that pulled up a big limousine bought everything she had, and he said he was a buyer for Bloomingdale's, and he said, "I'll take everything you can can." So she ended up being the largest purchaser of canning jars behind Walmart. Every Walmart in the country, she was the next purchaser. She wasn't that far behind them either. She had this big warehouse full of jars. And they went through a lot of stuff. So anyway, they became very wealthy, in a White House with Dan Quayle and Reagan, pictures with Reagan, big contributors to the Republican Party. But then, so one time we were there, and right before we left, she put her hand out and she prophesied over me. She said, "You will not be in that schoolhouse during the end times. You'll be living closer to the earth than you ever thought possible. You will be living closer to the earth than you ever thought possible." And what flashed through my mind in about a half a second was, I have 2 teepees, and I'm planning on living in the woods if it comes down to it. And that's living pretty darn close to the earth. And if I was to live any closer to the earth, I would have to live inside the earth. That was what I thought in about about a half a second, maybe 2 seconds. But I thought it just went through my mind. I have to be living inside the earth. Well, 2 months later, I'm standing in the cob house. We were the first person to live in this cob house. And I stood there and I looked at earth floor, earth roof, earth walls. I'm living inside the earth. So cob houses, you can build them. But the guy that they built that, the family that built that, and a lot of people helped out, but it was all built by hand. It was all built by wood out of the, lumber out of the forest, rough hewn stuff. Beautiful, beautiful work. But he said that we have about $2,000 in that place, and it was about 17 by 35 feet. It was, and my daughter was in it all by herself during the tornado, 2003. It went pretty close. She didn't even know what was happening. She was kind of windy out, blustery, but she didn't hear anything. She didn't hear the roaring or nothing because it's very soundproof. So 3 foot thick walls, that's pretty well bulletproof and soundproof.
I would say so.
Yeah.
One guy built a little one. He shot it. It would have been Armageddon proof when it happened. That's why you call for the mountains, man, to fall on me.
Yeah. So anyway, there's a lot of reasons for. We haven't even touched on the surface of it really, but there's a lot of good things, and I get, maybe glance over the comments, see if anybody's got a question.
All righty.
Do you have any questions or anybody else?
Try to, if you could, but my questions are, I guess we're going to have to do our own, like if this happened, I know Tommy is setting up a Reddit page, and he's trying to get that going, and of where people can go and meet and things like that. Now, if you have a question or something, don't leave us hanging here, because we don't know. I mean, tomorrow, what's going to be like? Are we going to get more of something's going to be going on? It's going to be all focused on New Orleans tomorrow for me. And I was showing the Mississippi, and with a lot of those horseshoe turns and things like that, I just don't see how it stays, because they already had to build spillways in the 1920s and 30s to keep the Mississippi, usable, because it was worth the billions of dollars in between the war to keep the port of New Orleans the place to go, instead of just saying, like, if the river changes, we'll change. That just wasn't going to happen, because they have their ley lines, they have their plan, and we're supposed to be wise and figure it out. And I think we have, in that nobody believes the government's going to straighten out things in Afghanistan, and that's going to go away. I don't see Delta going away. I see Lambda right on the horizon if it does. I mean, when in the 70s and 80s and 90s, wouldn't it be easy? Everything was like, oh, it's Russia bad, Russia bad, Russia bad. Now, if I could go back and find a couple of books saying, forget about Russia, China's going to come out of nowhere. But in the 70s, it was like, you ain't going to make it with anybody anyhow if you carry in books by Chairman Mao and the Beatles, because China was a joke. And in most adults' minds, my age down to probably age 30, they think China is still a joke, but they are not. They're the real deal. And just what happened when do I think was the great falling away in the Bible? I hear somebody ask off in the distance. Well, I think it was explained when it was in 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 15, when he said, all of Asia has departed me, including people that he had mentioned in other letters saying, hey, greet this person, he's cool. Turned out he wasn't. And that was Alexander and Hymenaeus. And then later on, even Demas departed him. So there, we believe that all this happened. And the reason, like in Daniel, it says, blessed are those who make the last 45 years. That blessed is blessed. And what it means is it's going to be like another rapture, because it doesn't say that Satan encompasses them about and every one of them is killed and then fire comes down. It says, no, as soon as Satan encompasses them about, fire comes down from heaven. And I believe that there is a chance for them to be big B blessed, in that they won't die. There's going to be some survivors of this who Jesus rescues again. That's what it teaches in Revelation 20, that there is another rescue. So that's what
I'll be able to read my books. Yay.
That's what we want to prepare for.
Yeah.
At least that's what and even if they just say better safe than sorry, I'll go prepare,
Yeah. Here's an interesting thing about, you talk about being surrounded in a siege, and the Ozark Plateau. Okay, if you look at that map you had up, you could kind of see a circular area around it. That's like the river basins, and those rivers will be borders. I said that last night, but rivers will be borders, especially if they're a lot wider than they are now. Okay, so if it's going to be surrounded and under siege by Gog, Magog, many people, whatever, surrounded. and fire comes down from heaven, or there'll be a wall of fire around Jerusalem. Remember the scripture? There will be a wall of fire around Jerusalem. I will be a wall of fire around Jerusalem. Okay. Well, oddly enough, all the way around the Ozark Plateau is gas and oil wells and lines and, pump stations and drilling stations and, all that stuff. So, but if you look at maps of all the oil fields and all the shale fields and all the natural gas fields, there's not a single one inside the Ozark Plateau. It's completely surrounded by them, but there's none inside the Ozark Plateau. It's completely clean of any oil or gas deposits. So that's very bizarre. Just a coincidence. Nothing to see here. I don't want to try to make any.
No, that's a good argument. Now,
but if they light up and people say the America's going to burn in 1 hour, if they light up, it's going to be a wall of fire around this area, and it'll be a place of peace. And that's what the word Jerusalem means. Place of peace. Jerusalem. It's not a place of war. It's a place of peace. None shall hurt or destroy on all my holy mountain. And who knows? It may be that this is his holy mountain. I mean, maybe that all the Torah toters would take offense with that, but too bad. They're going to walk over to Israel. Well, let me have your farm. Let me have the keys to your house. When you leave. One guy's got a complete, massive, awesome completely solar grid. With a 20,000-pound slab of black tile concrete surface where the sun hits it, right to where the sun hits it in the house, and that absorbs heat in the wintertime and radiates it to the house. It's got well, let me have keys to your house when you leave, because I'll make good use of it, buddy. Anyway, yeah.
What are they trying to mean by that?
There is a. What's that?
What do they mean by that? Give me the keys to your house. Why should they? What's going on with that?
Well, they believe they're going to go over to Israel. They're going to be taken over to Israel. Go live in a desert,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, they're going to, I don't know. Hey, if people during 9/11 even short sold the stocks for American Airlines, they're not leaving any pennies on the table. It's not in them. They like money.
Yeah.
So they're not going to just give away their house. They're going to sell it.
I'm talking about people that are believers that believe they're going to go over to Israel. I'm like, okay, well, if you're going to go to Israel, let me have your house. I don't know. There's just such a common belief. They believe that the roads are going to rise up through the land. They're going to drive over to Israel. Whatever.
Right.
Give me a break. But it could happen, but I don't think so. Somehow, I just don't think that's going to happen.
There is a thing. You don't believe those are the real Jews, do you?
No, not at all.
Yeah, that's all just a fake setup. I mean, that Herzl would have just been just as happy to set them up in Brazil, because he had a plan to set up Jerusalem in Brazil. That was going to be their holy land. But then it worked out. Oh, Middle East is good. Because they
need a homeland for the Jews, yeah.
Well, no, they needed a homeland near oil so that there could be constant tension between the made up out of whole cloth religion of Islam, because there never was a Madonna, and the Jesus Christ took the whole zeitgeist movement and shrugged it off, because he's real, he's God. If the mainstream artists wanted to ever do a zeitgeist movie on Muhammad, there is not any proof for Mohammedism. So that's why they're in the Middle East, is because they could say, oh, these guys, they're that, we're this. It's that same thing of Ishmael against Jacob, and it's the real Jews and God. And what do they say? God made a covenant with us Jews that it doesn't matter how stiff-necked or disobedient we ever are, he'll always protect us, because he loves us that much. And we're still his only chosen people, because why? They don't believe the New Testament. What is the New Testament? Joy to the world, the Lord is come. In him all nations will be blessed. The veil was lifted, and all of a sudden those scriptures became clear that in him all nations will be blessed. And so the gospel could go to the Gentiles. And what did the synagogue of Satan say? Oh, no, no, no. We're not going to have none of that. We're going to, you have to follow the whole law of God. Well, what does the Bible says? The spirit, not the letter of the law, is the most important thing to our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Because if our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ was going to if Jesus wasn't going to believe that the spirit of the law is more important than the letter of the law, he would have killed that woman caught in adultery. He would have picked up the first stone and boom.
Yeah. There's a good little song. There's a little couplet. It says, "Do this and live. The law commands, but gives me neither feet nor hands. A better way his grace doth bring. It bids me fly and gives me wings." So that was terrible, but a better way, do this and live, the law commands, but gives me neither feet nor hands. A better way his grace doth bring. It bids me fly and gives me wings. So that's the difference between Old Testament and New Testament. But the law is the same in both,
Well,
Love the Lord thy God
for
with all
those
thy
of
heart
us
and soul
who
and mind
couldn't
and strength
follow
and
the
love.
song, sorry to interrupt again, Jerry, but for those of us who couldn't follow the song, give us the basic gist of what that song was saying and what is in that the difference.
Yeah, I just repeated it. It's do this and live, the law commands, but gives me neither feet nor hands. A better way his grace doth bring. It bids me fly and gives me wings. It tells me to fly, but it also gives me wings so I can fly. So it's just a beautiful little couplet, little
okay.
saying.
Yeah, I heard it better that second time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and the fact that even Peter and James and John, they were all shocked because it's not until chapter 10 where Peter goes to Cornelius's house, and there's only 27 chapters in the book of Acts, 28 maybe. It ends very abruptly, but I mean, so that's 1/3 of the New Testament is gone before the Gentiles even get into it. So here it'd been quite a while. Then all of a sudden, wait a minute, go to the Gentiles. I've never done. What is this? I can't go into their house. So it was a shock. It was a shock to them, and it was something that you could. The synagogue of Satan was going to have nothing to do with it. As a matter of fact, it appears that in the Council of Jerusalem in Acts 15, that the only thing that the Sadducees and the Pharisees could agree on is that Jesus Christ was not the Messiah. He's no good. We needed a Bar Kokhba, somebody that was going to fight, and lift us back up so that they could do what Jesus did when he fed the multitudes. He healed them. They wanted a country that was completely safe, and they had free health care and free food. That's the king they want.
Yeah. If you have had, how many thousand people do you have on your channel before it went away?
6,000. It was like 9,700.
Yeah. You got 200 or 300 now. Even with just 200 or 300 people, you should be able to get some kind of a thing going where you get the people say, let's move, let's go, let's get together, let's work together, build our own houses, get some land. Like I said, 10 families could buy land and build 10 houses easily. Not that difficult. And this is a place to do it because there's wood for building and rocks for building and water everywhere. And it's a good place to do it. Is no. Here's a huge thing that most counties in Missouri and Arkansas are no-code counties. You can do whatever you want. You can build what kind of building you want. You can plumb it the way you want. You can do the electrical the way you want. Hopefully you follow some kind of guidelines and stuff, but you don't have to. You don't have an inspector. You don't have a permit. Like when Bill wanted to build a cabin here where I've been staying, he went into the county seat and he said, "What does it take to get a permit?" And the lady he said her head was down when he came in and asked the question, and her head came up very slowly. Her eyes open, got wider and wider very slowly, like she was asleep, had them closed, and she was You know, as you imagine her head coming up, her eyes opening up, and she goes, "What's a permit?" You know.
What's
So
a
you don't have to
permit?
have a permit to do anything, build anything, or plumb it, or do electrical, nothing. You know, you can do whatever you want to do. And
That
most
was
counties are
one
like
of
that.
that was one of the selling points that I was telling people about Taos, New Mexico. Is probably, you know, that's that same thing. No permits, this and that. Go do your own thing. But you know, as far as you know, even you know, out of 200, you know, there, you know, right now, everybody, you know, or most people are in a situation like that you hear on the news. These aren't the 1%. These are the people that are month to month like everybody else, the majority of them. And when they do sacrifice to give to me, it's not like a house or anything like that. I do, you know, it's hard right now to get Christian truthers who have left the mainstream church to think that they're, you know, that you don't muzzle the ox while they're treading the field anymore. They've been burnt so many times, you know, that I would have never gotten 9,700 subscribers if I would have had Patreon or asked for money, you know, stuff like that. It does seem like they wanted to be like, you know, am I going to practice what I preach? And I live pretty poor.
Yeah.
But it, you know, eventually that land's going to be there, and we're just going to go live in it because other people are going to have fled to the city for safety or whatever. And we're not. It's not going to be. You know, I guess it could be about buying it right now, but you know, when I'm not encouraging people to use banking accounts and everything else and stuff like that, how do you do it? How do you say, we need to get an LLC, get some good land where the government will leave us alone, and all we need is their approval to buy it? That's like us saying, you know, we're really running the airport in Kabul because the Taliban said we are. To where if we really wanted to run the airport in Kabul, we'd have to do the same thing of go back and take Fallujah for the third time and reconquer it by sending in 20, 30,000 troops, bomb it from the air and everything else. But we're in the middle of a trifold disaster. We've got health problems, and we've got weather problems, and then so weather, health, and our government is stabbing us in the back. I mean, that's the trifecta of, like, you know, what are we waiting on now, you know, to make a decision about whose side are we on, the Lord's side or what? But I say it'd be better off taking that money right now and investing in things that solar panels, copper for making, you know, we can make our own energy. We've been studying and learning, you know, that atmospheric, you know, the higher you put up, I mean, trees make energy. They can put a metal pole in the sky and it makes energy. How much energy do we really need is the thing. You can make a grist mill to grind your grain from a river. Do we really need to make a hydraulic dam because we need to build a plant because we have to can food for an army? No, everybody's going to be taking care of their own fields and stuff, Lord willing, and hopefully, well, absolutely, because what do we know from Revelation chapter 20? There's going to be survivors. There's going to be Christians, saints, the same word that they use throughout the New Testament. It's not like some people teach that, oh, and we'll be called those saints got caught up, and that's a special word. No, these saints is saints. If you want you to become a Christian, and if you are one called, two chosen, and three faithful, you are already a saint. You are in Christ. He will make you stand. You will be delivered because you've been called, predestined, elected, and adopted by God the Father, who knows how to love an adopted son like a regular son. And he still will never be Jesus because he is God in the flesh. but he was the example of son, like it says in Hebrews 1. In the last times, and through many various ways, God has spoken to through the prophets to the people, but in these last times, he has sent son. You know, what he told Abraham, God will provide himself as a sacrifice. The emphasis is not what you say, it's how you say it. He's not, oh, you're going to just provide something for you. No, the verb is he will provide himself a sacrifice. And that ties into it was Jesus Christ, God in the flesh, and will be in the flesh, whereas God the Father is always going to be a spirit. Is a spirit. There are one, but that's the dichotomy of that. We have a spoken, you know, the word that made life was made, you know, in the beginning was the word, and the word, the sound and the vibrations is what this is all about. And that can make water divide water. And then when you have God and all of his knowledge, he can bring forth dry ground, and then there's dust. But now I get it. I'm changing topics and I'm saying the same things over and over again. Where should they go to get their seeds? What supplies should they be bringing when they want to meet the people that are going to be drawn there from Russia and other places around the world that seem to know about this? That I'm not surprised. Everything we read, everything we see on TV is made to keep us from this type of information. I see, you know, Victoria's talking about vegetables, colloidal silver. If somebody's going to show up and wants to be that person that says, here's what the Lord has brought me here with to help with, and who's going to be the person that goes like, wow, I wish I would have thought of that. What is it? You know, help them not to have to think of it. Did you get that, or am I frozen?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, there's seed banks and stuff, you know, and seed sources. With one of the greatest seed companies in the world, in the country, is a Baker Creek Seed over by Mansfield, Missouri. That's a good one. There's Missouri Wind and Solar for doing power, and there's a lot of different, you know, businesses that are catering to.
Your microphone.
There's what was a guy in
the
Nixa area.
To that. Yeah, I'm having a hard time understanding you. Your microphone, Jerry, is going back like at the beginning there. I don't know what's changed, but go ahead and give that again. There's a Baker Seed Company near there, but it's going to be
Baker
heirloom
Creek
seed.
Yeah,
Scotty
that's what we have to
says,
have.
right. Victor, I don't know who you are, but we don't need that. I'm not trying to start a cult. Come back and say, oh, doggone it. Who did I just do that to? Scotty, I didn't mean to block you. You know, it changed too fast. Victor, you come back and say one more goofy thing like you think I'm trying to start a cult based on me, and you'll just be blocked and have to change your name again, because you're probably one of 4 or 5 people that think you're doing the world a favor, that Armageddon's not over, I'm not a Christian, and I'm making all this up. So I'm just sick of it. Is Victor CZ one of our guys, people, or what the heck's going on? That he would come on here and say that a cult of Allen, and you know, what is that all about? Sorry, Jerry, but sometimes I get super defensive, and after 2 hours, the last thing I want to hear after trying to give God all the glory is that I'm trying to put myself first, because which one, you know, I'm sure some people would want to kill me. Which one of the godly people don't get harassed in the Bible? You probably are familiar with this type of thing. I just, crap. Sorry to break your concentration, Jerry, but it's just, you know, the people frustrated Moses and it cost him, not his salvation, but entering into the Holy Land. And yeah, Moses, struck the rock the second time when he should have just spoken to it. But God later explained to those stiff-necked Jews, he said, you had provoked him and hangled him, and even got Aaron and Marion to turn against him. And what was as in the day of the rebellion? There's always people that say, if God was going to tell anybody anything, he would have told me, not Alan, not Jerry, not the other Christians that are out there, flat earthers, putting it all on the line, So that's where I'm at. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, we're right at 2 hours and 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions for anybody that has said anything in the chat, or do you have any questions for me that would be more along the lines of like the biggest stumbling block to you thinking that Armageddon could be over, and that, we're on a time clock now of like, and 2046 is just me. That's my denomination. The only thing I really want people to do is realize that Jesus wasn't lying when he said he's coming back in that generation, because that's it. Now that my veils are, my eyes have been, opened and my ears unplugged. If I ever go back and teach anything else, that'll be just proving that I'm an idiot, and I didn't really believe it, but I really do believe it. So, oh, there goes Jerry. He's dropping off. We'll give him a few more. Oh, that was quick. He's still spinning in the black there. There you are, Jerry.
See me wave?
Yeah, it says, go ahead, Jerry. What I was stepping on you, as I am wont to do sometimes, and I regret it, but the last bit of info you had, and we don't know, it was right before I had, it's just like, I'm not going to have people come on here and saying I'm trying to be a charismatic leader and start a cult with a socialist utopia. Baloney. If you don't want me there, kick me out. Just be happy and know that the Lord, do something like that. If you don't think that 9/11 started the last, blessed are those who make the last 45 years. If you think there was another time, put it out there and start teaching it. As long as
I tell people, I say to people, go start your own channel and put out 7,000 videos and then talk to me. When they criticize me or you or whatever, just say, hey, go start your own channel. I just tell them, go troll under somebody else's bridge. I don't feed trolls. Deleted, blocked, deleted, whatever. Yeah, I don't put up with it either.
Okay, yeah, Gabby wants to. Gabby, thank you again. That's the third time you kind of bailed me out here tonight. Go back to that. Was it the Mansfield Seed Company and everything else like that? Since I accidentally blocked one of my good friends that I just was on the phone with last night or yesterday or today, when I meant to do Victor. You left off. You were talking about Mansfield Seed Company there in Springfield, and then going forward.
The city is Mansfield. It's near Mansfield. The company is Baker Creek Seed Company. They put out a massively beautiful catalog. I mean, organic, non-hybrid seeds. I don't know how it's a family business and built up over the years. Phenomenal photography. I mean, if you get their catalog, it's worth $10, whatever they charge for it. I mean, it's a gorgeous, just overwhelming, beautiful photography in that catalog of the plants that they sell the seeds for. So
Mansfield Seed Company.
No, Baker Creek Seed Company.
Baker Creek. Why are you confusing me? Go ahead.
Why am I confusing you? Because you're not listening.
I know.
It's near Mansfield.
You're just like Tommy. I get it.
The city is Mansfield. I'm trying to be accurate. Yeah, the city is Mansfield. They're not even in Mansfield. They're outside of Mansfield, but it's Baker Creek Seed Company. and their little town there, they have big festivals 2 or 3 times a year. I don't know, at least once a year. 10, 20,000 people going through their little old Western town, and music and stuff, all that good stuff. Yeah, very cool. There's a water mill, that friends of ours built, Paul and Luke Asher. They built a water mill. And I said, you need to urethane that. They go, no, it's made out of cypress. I'm like, okay, note to self, cypress is waterproof because it grew up in the swamp. It lived in the swamp, and you don't need to waterproof it. It is waterproof because it's so dense and hard. So anyway, yeah, Baker Creek Seed Festival, Seed Company is a place to get seeds, non-hybrid seeds, one of the best. Morgan County has some, but they're not always non-hybrid, so they're kind of iffy on that. There's a lot of companies that sell greenhouses. I mean, that's a great way to, you want to build a house and put a roof on it, put a greenhouse on it for the second floor. You get a roof, a second floor, and a greenhouse, food production all in one. Plus a, solar dehydrator and laundry. You can hang your laundry up in and dry your laundry. So in the winter, additional heat for the house, pump it down into the house. So very, very, this is thinking outside the box type thing, but it's a lot cheaper to put up a greenhouse than it is to buy all the timber, all the lumber and the timber to put a roof up, whether it's a gable or, whatever. It doesn't make any difference what kind of roof it is. It's a lot cheaper to put up a few pieces of pipe and some greenhouse plastic and pump it full of air than it is to build a second floor of a house, with the walls and everything else. So just an idea. You can live in a greenhouse, you can survive in a greenhouse very easily here, grow food and, survive. There's ways to do that. So I have a couple of videos on greenhouse, really nice greenhouse in El Dorado Springs. It's a phenomenal job. They, it's a double wall and they inflate it and whatever. So there's a dead airspace between the 2 layers of the plastic, and it's just very well done. I got videos on that. So I've covered a lot of things over the years on the topics of, homesteading and building a rocket stove and building a greenhouse and things that we need to know how to do, So anyway, yeah, and I would say this, as many people as you got, I just say, maybe if there's any of your listeners that want to get together and do something, come out and visit or do something, just let me know. I can point you to different directions, different cities, different friends, different contacts. Some people want to go to Northwest Arkansas. Some people, you can go to Southeast Kansas, Northeast Oklahoma, Southwest Missouri, or Northwest Arkansas. There's 4 states that comprise the Ozark Plateau, and anywhere in there would be great. So come on in, the water's fine.
Yeah. Well, right now, I used to live in Colorado, and I haven't been to Missouri in a while. There's some old friends that live there. I might be one of those guys that want to come check it out, man.
Yeah.
I'd love to. Like to see if I can talk Tommy into going with me too.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be good. So I'd say that's the next step. I mean, you need to do something, and Tommy, getting that idea, and a lot of your people are understanding, and there's just so many reasons that we haven't even touched on, but I think I got the main points across, why this is a good area. I have an article I wrote that, what are the requirements for a fortress to withstand a siege? And there's 6 things that you have to have in a fortress to withstand a siege. And one of them is have enough people, and we don't have enough people here yet, so need more people. Oh, hey, let me close with this idea. There's people here that have lived here a long time, and they don't want anybody else coming here. Don't tell people to come here. I was told that by a very good friend of mine. He said, our family's grown up together, for 20 years. Kids have grown up, and my son tried to marry one of his daughters, but he couldn't. He wasn't allowed to. But anyway, really good. In fact, they just wrote a check to him for a couple $1,000s. His boys, work for my son off and on, and that vice versa, But anyway, so we grew up together. We're really, really tight. But the guy told me, he said, don't tell people to come here. We don't want them here. We don't want more people here. Well, here's one of the things the brother told me, that he said, he felt God tell him this. He said, this is God talking. I am moving my pieces around on my chessboard, and I really don't care what the pieces think. Okay. The same people that say he owns everything I have is God's, he owns the earth and the fullness thereof. He owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. But don't tell people to come here. I don't want them here near me. I don't want them on my land. I don't want them, where I'm at right now. I can't have money over here anymore because, they don't want them here. So that's not cool. But point is, God owns it. The guy here will say God owns everything I have, but he won't. He doesn't. Anyway, God says, I am moving pieces around on my chessboard, and he owns the earth. I own the chessboard. I own the pieces, and I really don't care what the pieces or the board think. So if it's your land you're getting pissed off about, go talk to God about it. If he's moving people around on his chessboard, it's none of your business what he's doing. So, all right. Well, Baker Creek Seed Festival.
Right. I always tell people that are, known survivalists, and I got guns, I got food, and nobody's taking my house. Your friends are going to take your house. Those ones that joke, why should I do it? I'm coming to your house. And they say, don't come to my house, because they're going to kill you. But that's not your only friend. And once they tell other friends, if you're a known survivalist, and it's out that you're that guy, well, then you better have an M60 mounted on your roof, because that's what it's going to take when it hits the fan. It's not going to just be, oh, here comes Jimmy. It's going to be everybody that's hungry that they go, where are you going, Jimmy? Well, I know where there's food and guns. Let's go get them. So I don't know how many people, how many times, what you're going to do, what they're going to do, but everybody's going to handle it in their own way, in their own timing. Think not what you're going to talk about. God will give you the words in that time. I encourage people not to, so many times in the past, I would go, well, now I'm going here to talk to this deacon. He's going to say this, and then my argument would be that, and he'll probably say this, and then I'll get a chance to say this and that. Not one time did it ever work out like that. So all of our planning conversations, do make notes of the points you want to hit. But those times in prayer, studying the Bible, doing those things, those are still daily things too. And we need to practice those more than we need to have pretend conversations in our mind and then base our future on a pretend conversation. And just be safe for the people, those people like, your neighbor and this and that. They might be just as dangerous as some of these people that got tricked into thinking there's a better life in America and I should go look at it. Some of your neighbors are going to be more dangerous because it's less than 1% of the people that come over the border that are in MS-13 and in gangs and things like that. Most of these people are the people that come over here, and whether Q people want to hear it or not, they are the people right now who aren't afraid to get down and work 10 hours a day. And they're not a bad group of people that just came over here to sign up and take our unemployment. They want to make money, and they send 80% of it home. That's the vast majority. Go out on the streets in Montrose, California, where I was homeless for a couple of weeks, and I don't have a lot of great experience in being homeless, but it was terrible. There weren't many, if any, if I could say, Hispanics that were there. You know why? Because they get taken in. That's how come they say they got 3 families living in there, because they know how crappy it is to be sleeping in a ditch somewhere or going and curling up in a bush because you're homeless, man. So there it is. Everybody's going to be making their own, have their own opinions that God is going to be guiding right up until the next moment and the next moment. I'm not going to I have never really talked anybody out of believing that, if we would have closed the borders, everything would have been fine. And I know, I know all countries have borders. There should be ways. Who knows what's going on? But what I'm going to give you your time to close, your final 10 minutes, say whatever you want. But right now, I'm going to tell you people that if you think this is about that if you see three people walking up to you from three different directions and you're in a survival type situation, but you're not one of those people that just kills them, and you say to yourself, I like the guy that looks like me every time, you're not, letting all people do everything, to be judged by the, what's from God. Because there were, Jesus even did a parable about a man who was beat up and left on the road, and it was a Samaritan that picked him up. The priest walked by, the holy ones walked by. A Samaritan saw him and took pity on him. So we have that argument. Everybody has their argument that no, based on everything I know, America could have stayed great and been great, and we wouldn't have these problems now if we could have just kept out the Mexicans. There's going to be that opinion, and God will funnel us in to his kingdom in his will, in his glory, in his timing, and just as according to the lot, Jonah was chosen, and God had chosen a well according to his purpose to be right there and swallow him up. And that word according is in both of those things. And it means God planned it that way, because this book had its end written from the beginning, and there will not be any variance in it. Anything, Jerry, you want to close with? Now's your time. You're going to go uninterrupted until you say, and that's all I got. Oh, and come on back, Jerry. We're not done. I told you I was going to give you your 10 more minutes, man. But I did want to say that. No, he didn't say that we're the gold and the silver. He said we're the salt of the earth. But did he say that by doing good works to glorify his name, that you will be building up gold, silver, and precious stones? He did. Nobody, who said that you can't be the salt of the earth, and by doing good works, you will, according to scripture, have things, be built up. Gold, silver, and precious stone, because we can't carry anything with us, but we will have that. So we're only done if you don't want to come back on and give your last 10 minutes of the closing statements. But if I was not talking, it was because, it was spinning, and sometimes it takes a reset. You send away silent, no video. I told you I'm never going to cut you off. I told you I'm going to give you your last 10 minutes. I really felt like that was my longest monologue of the night. Hi, Amy. Good to hear you. Good to see you there. All right. All right. Glad that the hurricane isn't coming to North Carolina, but be safe on the way back. So that's there you go. There's Jerry. Yeah, Jerry, are you there? Oh, he's spinning. There he is. Jerry, you were spinning there. I don't know what was happening, but I told you I wouldn't send away. I would never just cut you off. I even thought I said I do want to finish this thought, but I'll let you have the last 10 minutes uninterrupted. Are you there, brother?
Yeah. I just got back on. I don't know. It just went dead for some reason. I don't know why.
Well,
So,
it's
did
done
you
that.
pick up any more questions, or did you have a
No,
questions? Yeah.
I wanted to finish my thought, but before I started, I said, or at least halfway through it, it might have already been blank. I said, Jerry, don't go anywhere. I want to give you the last 10 minutes with no interruptions.
And
So,
about that time you went blank.
oh, I was spinning blank. Well, people have
Yeah, no
already
video,
heard what
no
I
nothing.
have to say anyway. They do want to know, do you cover this information in your book? So tell them about your book, tell them about your website, and anything you want to close with. And the same thing I said, when I was off screen. I'm not going to interrupt you. Doggone it. Is this crazy? The more it seems like sometimes you can try to be doing the right thing and the good thing, and it just be like, there he is. There, yeah.
Okay. I'll try not to. I keep
Go,
getting lost
brother.
in the shuffle.
Go,
Okay,
brother.
yeah.
I think
Yeah.
your internet is getting bad, or mine. So you're on live now. Go ahead and close it out.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. If anybody wants to get in touch with me, my email, I'll put it in the comments, but it's DMNDS, 5 letters, the year 2001 at yahoo.com. So it's Delta Mike November Delta Sierra 2001 at yahoo.com if you want to get in touch with me. Or how to get out of Babylon at gmail.com, but I don't get on that one very often. You can text me, whatever. Facebook Messenger, I'm on Facebook Messenger, but it's under Jeremiah Elliott, my pen name, my nom de guerre for the book when I wrote it, because I didn't know what the internet was about in 2001. I didn't know much of nothing. That's when I got online. That's why it's 2001. And I didn't really, I didn't have a high level of trust, shall we say, in the world. So anyway, I used a pen name, not my real name. Now, since then, I had a Facebook persona, Jerry Diamond, but I found out just recently that the person that stole it was my ex-wife, and then when I realized that, I made a very complimentary, really nice comment, and she pulled it off. It so disappeared. I don't exist anymore on Facebook. So I'm Jeremiah Elliott on Facebook, and my pen name is Jeremiah Elliott. My book's the title of the book, the title of the website, and my channel is How to Get Out of Babylon. And the book can be found, you can download it free on lulu.com, lulu.com. It's a self-publishing house. You can buy the hard copy, you can buy get the PDF, you can buy electronic version, but How to Get Out of Babylon by Jeremiah Elliott. And then the website is no longer up, but you can go to Wayback Machine, webarchives.org and pull it up. It's How to Get Out of Babylon. You can pull it up and find, I can send you the link for that. Because the best version of the book, electronic version, is on that website still, and it still works. It's hot linked. Every section, every chapter is hot linked. Click on it, click on the next one, go back, go forward to the next or back. Preface and the epilogue are all in there. And I want to say this on the book. It was based on, it came out of the 3 days after my vision when I saw this young couple coming through the woods with their son and their daughter. And I knew they were homeless. I knew they were refugees. I mean, I just knew that in the vision. And they curl around and they enter this house, and in the house, there's food ready to heat up, pots, pans, silverware, dishes, saucers, plates, everything. And I cried for an hour and a half, after I saw that. I was just such an overwhelming sense of love. But I was on the way to a craft show, so the whole weekend I'm writing on a little notebook, a little tiny scraps of paper. I'm writing just thoughts going through my head, and that's where the book came out. It was those 3 days. It started off with the vision, and then wrote notes for 3 days. Just like we need to have houses that are paid for. We need to build our own houses, and they need to be earth sheltered houses, earth concrete contact houses, so that you don't have the problem with heating and cooling. And there's all kinds of. The whole book is basically an outline of how to survive what's coming on a shoestring budget. Because I knew that people were gonna. What I saw in the vision was people were going to be refugees, and so I wrote the book you know, with all the things that the Lord would show me at the time, how to build cordwood houses, cob houses, you know, different kind of houses that are natural and very healthy and very protected from the elements. And then, so the website was a website. It's not up anymore, but you can still access it. How to Get Out of Babylon. The only thing on it ever was the book anyway. So it's still, you can still access that. I can send you links for that. And then my YouTube channel, of course, there's like, I think 7,770 some subscribers. It's been sitting right there for like months and months and months. But apparently I don't ever get a new subscriber. And then I've got quite a few, I don't know, a couple thousand videos, maybe 3,000, I don't know, but a lot of videos on there, a lot of them related to homesteading and, you know, this and that, how to do things. And then I have a lot of playlists. I do research. I try to make information accessible to people. That's what I've done for 20 years, is try to make information, distill it, you know, cut through all the bullshit, you know, distill it, simplify it, hack it if I can. In other words, you know, if this item costs $500 and I could produce it for $100 and sell it for, you know, $150 and make any kind of money at all, I want to do that, you know. So I've done a lot of hacking over the years, DIY stuff, you know, how to build, how can you build this? How can you ground your own shoes? Well, you can do it. I've got the stuff coming to do it with. So, you know, ground your own shoes, make sure you're grounded 24 hours a day. I would say that's my goal, is to be grounded 24 hours a day. I'm grounded right now. The whole time I've been talking here, I don't know what I'd feel like if I wasn't. You know, I'm sitting on a grounded pad and I tested it. So, you know, the website, the book, you know, email me if you want. You know, I do phone calls. I'll talk to people. I like to arrange phone calls by, you know, with text or email to set them up so I don't just get called. Like this, I was about ready to quit, you know. The other day, I just felt like, the thought went through my mind, maybe I should just shut down the YouTube channel, you know, just quit. And then that morning, this guy called me, Anthony Rose, Tony's Coffee House, and he called me and said, hey, you need to get online. You get to get with Alan and you need to get with Jake out in California. And I'm like, I was thinking of quitting. I said, you called me at the right time, buddy. So he has a big shot in the arm, slap upside the head, whatever you're going to call it, attitude adjustment, as Hank Williams Jr. says, you know. See, there we go. I'm grounded.
Grounding is probably a new one, you know, for a lot of people.
Yeah. Very, very important, very powerful. I'm telling you, there's so many people that had all these bizarre autoimmune diseases, and they're recovering from them. They're getting better. I won't say healed, but hey, who cares? You know, they're not going to sue God. God's the one that created the earth. He's the one that made the earth a negative terminal, and the ionosphere the positive terminal. You know, Antarctica is the positive terminal. Anyway, so the Earth is a completely infinite, completely free source of negative electrons that will heal you about anything in the world. And it'll start, well, your body will start dealing with the most drastic things. So some people start grounding and they're like, well, I don't sleep any different. I don't feel any better, you know. But they had cancer. They come find out they had cancer, you know, and they pass a tumor or something, like, oh, that's why my body wasn't doing this and doing that. But so it's very powerful, yeah. Very, you know, the Earth is swallowing up, well, the dragon spewing out a flood, you know, whatever you want to call it, whatever your belief on that is. But, you know, it's swallowing up frequencies. It'll swallow up heat, swallow up cold, swallow up fire, you know. So we need to be able to live underground, but we need to get together and build those houses, you know, live in them. So a lot of young boys are being led to do that. You know, they're learning how to build underground houses. They're always out in the woods digging holes and practicing building them, which is, I think, pretty awesome, because like one time I was shoveling manure, you know, my son had his big, long 30-foot cattle trailer over here full of cow poop. And I said, well, that's good with fertilizer. Let us clean it out. So he brought his jet washer over, and my friend's daughter and grandson were over here, and they were helping me shovel manure. There's a video of it, you know. And my son, the grandson, is like jabbering away, tacking. I said, wait a minute, hold on. I said, you haven't read my book. There's no way in hell you could have read my book. He was actually like, he was as if he was reading from my book. He was quoting word for word from my book, you know. But we need to live underground. We need to live in houses, because underground houses will, you know, they'll be easier to heat and easier to cool. You don't have to heat them. You don't have to cool them. So it's really awesome. I was like, wow, how could you? Well, I've been thinking about this for a long time, you know, and I'm like, this is like a 9-year-old kid, you know, just like, oh my gosh. So the father's been really inspiring young men to do things that I've written about. my son, I said that meat on the hoof and crops in the ground is very critical. The best form of food preservation is live food, growing food, plants and animals. That's the best source of food is living food.
Amen.
Yeah. So my son's raising cattle. He's got 200-300 head of cattle, and Bill here has an orchard and gardens a lot. Him and his wife both garden real heavily, so lots of gardening and food production. He's got goats over here, but we don't eat the goats. So they're just make room for the cattle. Anyway, yeah. So I would just encourage people to get more in community, get more contact with each other, and get something done, make it happen. Make it so, number one. Just make it happen. Just do it, like Nike says. So
ask, seek, and knock, and we have not because we ask not. We need to get back to that prayer. But let's see if this rings a bell. So you saw some refugees, and I don't want to get a copyright strike. So let's do a cover of, we've been hearing this for a long time. Is it true? So that's what we want to avoid. Nobody wants to end up living like a refugee, but we're never going to be alone in Christ. He's going to watch over us. He's going to protect us. He will have a people that is encompassed about. This was never going to be a restoration. That's not what the Bible teaches. This is always a rescue. So that's what we are going to go forward to. I want to thank Jerry Diamond. I'm sure we haven't heard the last of him. That much I can guarantee. It is still a flat earth nation. Mud flood was Armageddon. I'm never going to tell you anything else. Why would I? We're here to try and prove we have your best interest at heart. Amen. Hallelujah. Aho.